And somewhat appropriately, this is the first episode of the year 2020. The year, as I mentioned before, that hopefully we get clear about things. 2020 vision, 2020 about how valuable cannabis is and how safe it is and how much it should be encouraged in our society as replacements for those other things that are causing us problems and don't work as well. And clear about just how corrupt our system has become and what's going on with that. Because the cannabis file really allows us to have a good look at what's going on with our government and whose interests they have in mind here. Because it's very clear from the way they've rolled out so-called legalization that they don't have our interests in mind here in Canada, that's for sure. Shout out to Kimron George in Grenada. How you doing, Kimron? We've been communicating about getting some stuff over there to help him educate his country about what's going on with cannabis. So I wanted to give him an early shout out on the show, and all the best with that. It's a real cool journey as you start to unravel all the different lies and the corruption that exists because of cannabis and the governing bodies trying to keep us from obtaining it and using it for all the things that we can. So on the show today, we're going to have 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca as always for the 420 session. Jerry Martin will join us for the Martin Medical Moment. And I've got Rick the Camel coming on as my guest, and I'm very happy to have Rick. He's a very colorful individual that's been involved in the cannabis movement for a very long time. And he's the operations manager for BC Bud Depot and got a lot of knowledge about growing and all that kind of stuff, which he's going to be happy to share with you, and I'm happy that that's going to happen as well. What I wanted to talk about on the show a little bit today was taxation. Taxation is this thing that gets levied on us and has been going on for about 3,000 years. The first known taxation happened in Egypt about 3,000 years ago. And we've been being taxed ever since all around the globe by all these different people that are governing and in charge and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm in favor of paying taxes to a degree. I know that it's the mark of a civilized society, and it's the price of a civilized society is that there are things that we need to pay for. And so it's okay to pay taxes because we need things and things cost money, and a proper fair level of taxation is a good thing in a society as it helps us be a stronger society and do that kind of stuff. I mean, there are other ways the government can raise money, and some of that can be good as well. But the truth is that we do need some money to operate things. But it's got to be fair. I mean, taxation is kind of like a license to steal. For people that are in these positions of power. If it's not people you can trust, then you could be in some trouble. And a lot of times there's been a lot of government waste and misappropriation of funds and actual right to criminal misuse of funds. And most of it all, it ends up in the pockets of people that are our friends and insiders, and that's the corruption that happens. And taxation is one of those areas of governing where you got to have a lot of checks and balances going on because there's a lot of opportunity for corruption to happen there. And, why do you put taxes on things? I mean, what is the reason for that besides the fact that government needs money? And how do you tax different things, and which things get how much tax placed on them, and what is the purpose of that? And all of those mechanisms of taxation are areas that we need to think about as a society and make sure that it's being done reasonably and it's being done fairly and that there's no corruption involved. And in the cannabis file that we're using to find out whether or not we can trust our governments, it turns out that everybody wants a piece of cannabis, and that there's 4 or 5 different levels of taxation being applied to cannabis before it hits the consumer. And none of those are justified because taxes, for the most part, need to be placed onto things where there's costs involved to society, and then the taxes need to be scrutinized to make sure that they're reasonable for what it is that the costs are being incurred, etc., etc. With respect to cannabis doesn't cost our society anything to use. It, in fact, is a benefit to our society in so many ways. when it's substituting and offsetting the use of alcohol, for example. I mean, I know so many cases where people have turned to cannabis and left alcohol, and a lot of their problems cease to happen for them. And we all know this is the case. I don't have to go into a bunch of different examples of where alcohol costs our society money. Alcohol is a fine thing. It's like anything else. It's like any other drug. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just there. And if it's used properly, it can be fine and it can be good. And if it's used improperly, it can be bad. And alcohol, unfortunately, when used in a population, tends to have a percentage of that which turns out to be not so good. And we all know that. It costs us a whole bunch of money, alcohol does. So if people are now going to use cannabis instead of alcohol, well, then that's going to save us a whole bunch of money, unless cannabis was costing us money, which it isn't. So there's just one area of where there's no justification for cannabis. Not to mention that it's or for taxation on cannabis. Not to mention that it's medicine for people. And it is not right for the government, and we've decided these things, that taxes on medicine aren't right, and especially when it's hurting poor people, and especially if it means that now you're not going to be able to access the medicine that would help you and in fact save your life. And so there's no reason for taxing cannabis when it's a medicine for people and it's helping with that, and it helps with so much that it's just outrageous that they think that they should be putting all these taxes on it. In fact, the use of cannabis should be supplemented by our government. There's no question about it. And especially for people that are using it for medical purposes, that are suffering barriers of financial means, where they don't have the means to get what they need, then as a sane and civil society, we need to make sure that these people can get access to cannabis. It's not a frivolous thing. And even if it was just getting high has gotten a really bad rap, don't you think? I mean, getting high is not a bad thing. We struggle for higher ideals. We go to higher education if we finish with our regular education. We go to high school. We have high values. We honor the Queen and it's Her Highness. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting high. High is how you feel when you're watching a sunset, listening to beautiful music, eating a gorgeous piece of chocolate cake with the person that you love. Like, high is a good thing. High is where you function the best. When you're at your best, you're highly attuned to what's going on in your environment. If you're driving a race car, or if you're doing some specific task, you want to be at the highest level of where you can be to be able to pull off all of that. So to think that getting high is a bad thing is a real misnomer, and it's a real misdirection from what the truth actually is. I mean, I love Cheech and Chong, especially for what they're doing now. They're there now showing that you can really take way, way, way too many drugs during your life, and you can still make it to being in your 80s and function at a high level. And I love that that's the message that they have going on right now. I wasn't so thrilled with the message that was going on before that, although it did sort of make cannabis a more friendly substance to watch them. But it also said that people got stupid and lazy and things like that, and it promoted that myth a little bit. But the truth is that cannabis helps people function at a high level, and we shouldn't be afraid of that. A new UBC study has just been released showing that there is no increased risk of accident from THC. And I'm here to concur with that, except that I will say that these things have different effects on different people. And I would think that there's people out there, some that I even know, that would argue that point and say that the THC does increase their particular risk of having an accident, and therefore they don't drive. And lots of things can impair people, and I'm a real big fan of not ever driving impaired, because that's a couple thousand pounds of steel that you could just kill somebody with pretty quickly if you're not in proper control of it. So driving impaired is really an issue for me. I don't think it's a good idea. I would never drive impaired, and I'm not pleased with people when they do that, because they're taking other people's lives in their hands. So it's really good to see that study come out, because I've been proving it to myself, and I wouldn't drive impaired, but I've been driving under the influence of cannabis for almost all of my driving years, and that's 48 years and 1 million miles that I've put onto the highways. And there's been many times when cannabis has helped to keep me alert, and I use it as a functioning tool, and it has that ability when used that way. So anyway, back to taxation. cannabis is going to offset the use of alcohol. Cannabis is going to offset the use of commercial tobacco, which kills millions of human beings every 12 months. Cannabis is going to offset the use of opioids and other painkillers, and we have all kinds of problems with those. We have an opioid overdose death crisis going on at this point. So, yeah, cannabis should not be taxed. It should not be priced out of range for people. It should be subsidized and made sure that everybody gets to access it easily. And if our public servants were actually servants of ours and had our interests in mind, then that's what would be happening. But instead, we've got cannabis that everybody wants to get a piece of, and all the provinces and municipalities and everybody in between and the federal government, they all want their piece of cannabis. They all think it's a gold mine, and for some reason, people are willing to pay 103 or 400 times what they're willing to pay for the actual other plants that have a similar cost in production. And so this whole gravy train that they've all jumped onto, thinking that they can maintain higher than prohibition prices and everybody's going to get a piece of that. And so there's 5 or 6 levels of taxation and fees and all these other costs that are involved that are all just ridiculous, unjustified, and making it so that people can't access this life-saving miracle medicine, medicinal herb that people need. So that's just one area where when we are going back to revisit, and I hope we do that soon, I hope that people really get behind the idea of having a good look at what it is that we want for governance here in a free society of free, autonomous, sovereign individual beings, and what we want these people that we're paying to be servants to be doing for us, and what we don't think that they should be doing for us, because they're really outside of the bounds of what most people that I know think is reasonable, and especially when it comes to restrictions and regulations put on accessing cannabis, because as we've mentioned, it's something that they should really be helping people get, not keeping away from people, or keeping it just for the rich people, or making it so that they're making billions of dollars on something that's saving people's lives. And it's really immoral and unethical to be making a whole bunch of money on something that is really needed for people to keep them alive. So that's going on with that. We've got some other things in the news at this point. I don't know what legalization means in Illinois. I don't know what it means in all these different states. I don't know if it's a lot like what's going on here in Canada, where it's not real legalization at all. It's just a government monopolizing the sales and trying to put the former supply chain out of business, and a serious blow to activism and that sort of thing. So I don't know what's going on in the United States. I don't know what's going on in Illinois. But, I'm getting reports out of there that seem pretty good. They've said that because they've legalized adult use in Illinois and in Chicago. And they said that they won't be arresting people at the airport if you've got cannabis. They've expunged 11,000 criminal records for people that had simple possession of cannabis records. And there's still 161,000 other people that are eligible for that. And they're looking at those, and hopefully they'll follow soon. Although, there's an example of just how corrupt the system is when there's 180,000 people in one city that are living their lives with a criminal record for simply accessing what turns out to be just a medicinal herb that helps people and really doesn't carry with it any of the problems that are carried with alcohol and these other substances. And here yet using the criminal law against people wanting to possess this to protect corporate interests is a serious crime that I hope we're going to revisit down the road as well. But so that's going on in the news. And the governor of Illinois lined up, and I think she was the first one to purchase legal gummies. I don't know how much the legal gummies had as far as a milligram amount went. Here in Canada, our corrupt government has decided that 10 milligrams is all people can have in one dose. And if you want another dose, then that's going to be another $8 or $12 for another big chunk of some sort of chocolate or brownie or who knows what they're going to put it in. But hopefully down there they have reasonable doses for people, like 25 milligrams that you can buy, or maybe even 50 or 100 milligrams that people can buy for medical purposes, because that's what medical people use. And these 10 milligram caps that we have here in Canada isn't going to help those people at all. And it's certainly not going to help people offset the use of opioids and deal with that as well. So good on Illinois for doing that. Back up here in Canada, they say there's 100 tons of cannabis has been consumed since legalization through the legal markets, and that represents about $441 million that they've taken in. A lot of that is forced purchases through programs where vets are able to get cannabis, and that's all through the LPs, and there's other medical users that have to use the LPs, and so they are selling a fair bit of weed that way. They're not selling very much through the stores, not like they thought they would. They were projected by some places to sell close to £1 billion or 900 million pounds of cannabis in the first year, and they're way below that. I've heard some economists say that they think there'll be an increase in sales in the new year, and I think they're going to be sadly disappointed, because if there's been that much legal cannabis purchased and consumed, then there's been that many customers lost, because once people experience what the legal cannabis stores have to offer, and then they go and experience what's going on at parties that they go to with people that are growing for themselves or getting it through other sources, or once they buy it online from non-government sources, then they find out that cannabis is way better and way cheaper when it's not sold by the government. And just like just about everything else the government ever touches, it gains that similar reputation as being something that the government will touch it, the government will ruin it, and it's nothing that we want to have any part of. And you can fear your government, and you can fear the government cannabis stores, because the uncured, over-dried, old cannabis that they want to sell you that's been irradiated or sprayed is not something that we should be consuming, and friends don't let friends consume LP weed. So that's going on. That's going to continue to go on, and until they adjust their model to allow access to people for what they really need, some properly cured dank bud that hasn't been irradiated into oblivion, that is priced at levels that people can afford, and it's available for medical patients and also in the form of high dose edibles. Until they've got that going on, their stores are not going to be supported. Their shareholders are going to continue to take a kick in the teeth, and we'll see how long they continue to do that before they get up to date with the rest of the society in Canada and give us the cannabis that we want, the way that we want it, from the people that we want it from, and we'll wait and see how long it takes them to get that going on. But in any case, that's happening. We've got here in Halifax, in an effort to support that legal corrupt monopoly, another bust of a dispensary in Halifax in two different locations. The farm dispensary has been busted. $26,000 seized, 10 pounds of cannabis, and 1,600 other cannabis products, which I would imagine would be high dose edibles and things like that. 3 people are facing charges on that, and this is a further criminal abuse of our public funds and what we want public servants for. We do not need our public servants blocking access to sick and suffering Canadians who want to have a medical dispensary storefront that the Supreme Court has said that they deserve to have. We do not need our public servants shutting access down and wasting our tax dollars doing this. Shame on them for doing that, and all the best to those people that are facing charges in Halifax, and I'm really sorry to all those people that are now going to have to find some other source of cannabis besides a non-government dispensary. So in any case, we already talked about the UBC study that's saying that THC does not increase the risk of accidents. So it's really good that some studies are coming out like that, because there's a lot of reefer madness around driving as well. And the powers that the government has to seize your vehicle and to charge you for driving under the influence is just obscene. And we need to address that as well. So good on that for coming out. And I guess the other thing in the news today is that Australia's capital back in September legalized adult use, which is quite a turnaround from the way things were going in Australia. And I'm glad that they did that, and I hope that they'll leave those people alone, because it's really tragic what's going on in Australia. And my heart just bleeds when I see the images and understand the damage that's happening there, the wildlife that's being killed, the people that are being displaced. And I have friends in Australia, and this is a way worse year than they've ever had. And their coal-burning government, there's the 419 warning, needs to really get their heads out of their asses and start addressing the issues of climate change that seem to be really devastating a lot of what's happening in Australia. So at least they can smoke weed legally as adults, although I suspect that their system is similarly corrupt to ours in who can supply who with what and how that all works. But it's a step, and in the perception of it is that cannabis is legal in Australia, so that's great. And it's 420, which brings us to the 420 session. So all of you at home, I'm sure you got it ready to go. I'm sure it's probably the favorite session of most of you. Hearing me ramble on is just what you have to put up with to get here. And as always, very happy to have 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca. How you doing, Glenn?
Good, Neil. How are you?
Pretty good. Happy 420.
Happy 420. And I must say about the smoking and driving, if you're just starting to smoke cannabis, don't drive.
Exactly. Well, if you're eating edibles and you're not used to that.
I got 25 years of smoking and driving experience. So I just don't want the younger people to think, oh, they said we can go smoke because of the study. Don't do it. Get to know yourself first and how you are when you're high or medicated, and then you'll know. Because I know lots of people who have been smoking for 20 years and still cannot smoke and drive.
Yep, me too.
There's certain people out there that can do it. And
thank you for bringing that up. Because that is what needs to be clarified. Not everybody is impaired. That's important to know, because there's a lot of people that aren't impaired and driving is their livelihood. And medical users, for example, many of those don't get impaired by cannabis. They barely deal with the pain levels that they're dealing with. But people that are novice users, cannabis is the opposite of alcohol. Cannabis enhances your senses. It wakes everything up a little bit. It makes everything a little bit brighter, a little bit funnier, a little bit more, all of that. And that is debilitating for people that aren't used to that. That is overwhelming and impairing for people that aren't used to that. So you don't want to be driving a motor vehicle. You want to do exactly what you said. Get used to the effects. And once you're used to the effects,
then you'll know. Because stoners don't go out and drive if they're really stoned. They go to sleep. They pass out on the couch, they pass out on the floor or bed or whatever place they may be, right? They don't go, oh, I'm drunk and I'm invincible and I know how to drive home. I've been driving home for 20 years, right? Because that's the difference.
And I mentioned that I smoked weed, for the million miles that I put on the roads. I've been under the influence of cannabis or had that in my system.
Me too.
But only to a point. Only to a point. Shatter is overwhelming to me. I don't dab. I don't use shatter hardly ever. And I wouldn't drive if I did that. You don't cough, you don't get off.
So. You want some water? Here, have some wine.
All right.
I'm sure we share joints. You can share a bottle. There you go.
I'm not afraid of you, Glenn.
Oh, neither am I. There you go.
Thank you very much.
So,
good point. But we need to do.
We have to be clear, right?
We need reasonable police that understand what impairment looks like, and not just understand what cannabis use looks like.
Because technically,
red eyes, and the smell does not mean impairment.
No.
And a roach in the ashtray doesn't mean impairment. But there are ways to tell if people are impaired. And if they're impaired, then get them off the road, and that's that for that. But there has not been a big increase. Police know that, by the way. They've been looking for impairment for a long time, and cannabis has been involved with drivers for a long time. It's not just all of a sudden they legalize and now people are driving under the influence.
And we haven't heard of anybody killing anybody while under the influence of cannabis.
There's been no
we may have heard of cannabis and alcohol mixed together, but we've never been able to prove that. Like, it's mostly alcohol.
Studies in the States are showing that states that have medical cannabis dispensaries have less incidence of drunk driving on the roads.
Exactly. There you go.
Less incidence of opioid overdose in those same states, and many benefits to having medical cannabis available through storefront dispensaries and easily available.
And under the government's rules, I'm impaired 24/7, 7 days a week, all year long, because if they ever test me, because of the levels that are in my body from the 38 years that I've been smoking, I will always be technically impaired, right? As the government would say, but I'm not. I can walk a line, I can close my eyes and touch a nose, right? I can do all that kind of stuff.
Impairment is not based on what's in your system. It's based on, what your behavior is and what your reaction time is, and are you thinking clearly, and all those sorts of things. So we got to figure that one out. What else is new with you?
I'm celebrating 18 years clean today.
Wow.
Yes.
And that's clean from
crack cocaine.
Crack cocaine.
Yeah, I had a good 12 years of bout with crack cocaine. And in 2000, I lost my kids.
How did that go for you using crack for 12 years? Did you still have all your belongings and a place to live?
No. I always had a place to live because I had children. I was a single parent. And then I lost my kids when they were 10 years old because of my drug habit. And about a year later,
I think that was warranted?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
And then I hit bottom, and I've been clean since then. Always using cannabis. Didn't go to NA. I always thought that NA was another place where I could meet somebody who could provide me a new dealer for crack. You know, and you weren't allowed to use cannabis, which I was using at NA. So, which is, I think, is a problem too, because cannabis has really helped a lot of people.
And you're allowed to use cigarettes and coffee at NA.
Yes, really. Nicotine and caffeine.
Yeah. So a couple of pretty hard addictive drugs, in my opinion. Caffeine and tobacco. Are perfectly permitted.
Yes.
But cannabis isn't. And yet here on the downtown east side, where I've been involved for well over 15 years, we opened the Herb School in 2004, and so we all recognize, all the social workers and people on the downtown east side of Vancouver for the last 15 years have recognized that cannabis is a really good harm reduction tool. It's probably one of the better ones in the toolkit. So
when we could start a new group, the Cannabis Narcotics Anonymous group, you know, where we could use cannabis, and instead of people sitting around smoking and drinking coffee, you could smoke a joint, tell your stories and how people have, you know, saved their lives with using cannabis.
I'm not sure about the name of your group, but I like the idea. I like the idea.
Yeah,
the idea is a good one. Cannabis has saved a lot of people, and that's what a lot of people say, is cannabis has saved my life.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely saved my life.
I know my friend Chris Bures in Winnipeg doesn't believe in addiction and thinks that it's all just personal choice, moment by moment. I think it's a lot of your behavior is personal choice that you made a long time ago.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more to it than that. But yeah. Like those people who were on substances that are really problematic, that do kill people, and you know, back in the late 90s and as well as in the last 3 or 4 years here, there's been a lot of overdose deaths from those types of drugs and people involved in those drugs. So I think it's valid for somebody to say that, you know, if they somehow came to that point, rock bottom or whatever it was, and they made that decision to now just use cannabis, or because somebody put up a sign, Cannabis Substitution Project, and they tried it and it worked or whatever.
And you're saving lives.
But there's a lot of people that say that, you know, I got off of that and onto this, and that has saved my life, and that's what they believe. So.
And that's, you know, because your program, and on downtown east side, you've really helped a lot of people. I've walked through the parks nowadays, and I don't see people hitting crack pipes or using needles. I see them rolling joints. You know, and it's a big change.
It's our program, but it's what our program is about that's doing all that good. And that is that high dose edibles can work for a large percentage of people that are otherwise using harder substances and opioids. The reason is because they're fighting pain, almost all of them, even whether they know it or not. A lot of it's emotional pain, a lot of it's like buried stuff and you know, what's driving them. But a lot of it's well-known, physical pain, emotional pain, and all that drives addiction. And so that edibles, you can get to that level where you can kill that same pain. You know, you can't really do it with smoke for most people. Some people, I know that's all they use, and that's fine. But for most people, in my experience, it's the edibles that can get them to that level where they don't think about doing and needing those other drugs. It doesn't occur to them to go out and try to score some of the other drugs. They're just having fun. They're watching TV.
They're not thinking about their pain anymore. They're not thinking about their pain.
They're not thinking about what they need to deal with their pain. And so edibles works for a lot of people, and that's the thing. What we're doing with the Cannabis Substitution Project is now being done in many other places. Some of them are offshoots of our program that have been consulted with me about how to get it going and are using our name in the East Coast Cannabis Substitution. Chris Backer and his people doing a wonderful job out there of helping get and just starting what will grow as we did into a great program of helping people get access on a regular basis. I want to shout out to Jack in Victoria with the Cannabis Substitution Project there. They must be, you know, well into their second year now, or past their second year. And I'm told they're giving out about 1,200 care packs every day.
Wow. Every day he's open? Every day. Wow.
So,
imagine if we could get this going in Toronto, where there's over 6 million people.
There is some in Niagara, and there are others in that greater Ontario area, Metro Toronto area.
Wow.
And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more. The studies are backing the findings that we've had in our group.
I've seen that.
It's very successful. The anecdotal evidence is powerful. There's so many good stories coming out of it. But the scientific evidence that's being, like the Dr. Malloy put together, as he interviewed our people and did his study there, and with other groups as well, is coming out to validify, the fact that cannabis edibles gets people off of opioids, gets them through the withdrawal process, and can substitute the use afterwards. Very powerful stuff.
And when you're always thinking of your pain, you got depression too. It's like, why am I always feeling like this? Why me? Why me? So you want to get something into your system like alcohol or have a drug, so you can think about that, right? Don't have to think about that.
Exactly. The cycle that happens because of pain, with depression, with the lack of sleep, with the lack of proper nutrition, with the side effects of the drugs that they're on through their pharmaceutical companies. It's a horrific cycle, and there's a lot of people in that cycle,
stuck in it.
And so many of the people that say to me, "Cannabis saved my life," are people that were there, and now they're here. Now they're on this path, and they know what they're talking about when they said it saves their life. It's not just that you could die of an overdose. It's that you lose your life. You lose your
friends,
ability. You lose your
family.
Exactly,
sometimes it's a bad thing, but coming back from it can be done.
Right.
And using cannabis has helped me a lot.
And it's fun.
It's fun. You get to sit around and do shows with you.
Well, you can go there with it if you want, and you did. But even just without that, it's fun to use cannabis.
And
it's fun
sociable.
to use edibles. It's very sociable. It's sociable to have some edibles and then smoke a joint. That's what we're told. The joints are important at our project as well. I don't want to completely diminish the value
you got
of
the holy
cannabis.
rollers.
The holy rollers
they're
are there,
rolling
and if we don't
joints
put
and joints and joints and joints. Those guys.
We hear about it.
I brought them a few bags.
We hear about it. Originally, when I thought about what we would do there, it wasn't going to be joints. But I had some joints left over because I happened to get that great job of being in charge of the 420 and Cannabis Day rallies, of getting weed together and getting it rolled up. And the Holy Rollers, I get to oversee that. So I had some joints when I started this project, left over from the previous year of Cannabis Day. And so I gave them out. And then when I didn't give them out, people asked right away, and so as always, I would have the conversations about what is it doing for you, and why do you want it? Because the edibles, isn't that enough?
No.
And the cannabis, the joints do at least two things. One is they bridge that time from when you eat the edible to when the edible kicks in. And the other is that it's a very social thing. So you can eat your edible and sit on the couch with your friends and then pass the joint around, and then,
And if you got high dose weed, you could smoke like half a joint and still have the other half for later, especially
only on my show do I smoke full joints. Pretty much.
That's it,
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, then you're also around a lot of people, so it gets passed around, so you really don't have the opportunity to sit there and smoke a joint by yourself.
Well, but I could, and I do, but I don't actually usually finish the joint. And I won't even finish half the joint most of the time. I get close to half the joint, and I put it back out. And that's mostly when I'm driving, or by myself at home. Watching
kind of hard to use a roach clip while you're driving.
Speaking of roach clips,
there you go. Thank you, Gibby.
Didn't even bring it up. No slight intended.
Thank you, Gibby.
Is Jerry here yet?
He is. He is. All right.
I didn't see him sneak in there.
Does that mean my time's going to end now?
Well, no, we finish this. We're going to do this.
Well, I love Jerry Martini anyways.
Speaking of sports, a lot of activists don't engage in sports because it's such a distraction. But I'm an activist that needs a bit of a distraction, because otherwise I'm just full tilt all the time and stuff that burns you out. And so, I've been a hockey fan all my life, and then my cousin made the National Hockey League, and I played some hockey, and so I've come to like some football and some hockey. And kudos to the Canadian World Juniors.
I know, eh?
What a comeback.
Wow.
What a tournament.
Wow.
Those young men,
I was watching in 4K on my TV, man. I even broadcast the last few minutes of the show just so for all those people who couldn't afford TSN to see the game,
I had to tape it and watch it.
You taped it, did you?
Unfortunately, and for those of you at home that would want to be so excited that you want to make sure all your friends know what's going on with the game, some of those friends are taping it.
So before we post,
wait a little
we should
while.
write spoiler alert and then the post, right?
Because I looked at my phone at one crucial moment during the CSP where I was just taping the last half of the game because I couldn't watch it, and there it was, and I couldn't unsee that.
That's social media for you.
I tried to pretend that I hadn't seen what I seen, but I saw it, and so I wasn't all that worried, when it was 3-1 for Russia with 11 minutes to go. I wasn't all that worried. No. In fact, I wasn't worried at all.
But you didn't know how they caught up, so that's the interesting part.
There was still some value in watching it.
Yes.
But, the value of being down in the height of fear, you're just like, oh my God, it's 3-1 Russia.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
And then when that goal goes
30 seconds later.
Wow, you're through the roof, Well, I didn't get that, but because I knew they were going to score, and probably pretty soon because,
I did. I was off the couch going,
it was great in any way you look at it.
Look at the Canucks. They're going for 8 in a row tonight, too. Look at
Tampa
that,
Bay. That's all happening right now.
Wow. It is Tampa Bay, because it's Florida, right?
There's my priorities.
7:30.
I didn't take the show off to watch hockey, and in fact, I had to set hockey aside when I decided we had to do something about it.
We could probably do picture-in-picture over here for you.
No, I'm taping it.
You're taping it. Okay, all right. And no social media posts for Neil, okay?
68% chance that I get home without hearing what the score was. And,
just turn the phone off.
It's the radio, and I have trouble turning the radio off.
Oh, yeah, the radio
news
too.
I might need to hear,
Yeah,
but I try not to listen to the sports station, and I avoid the
social media.
News, so. Anyway, thanks, Glenn.
Yeah, no problem. There, we'll see you next week, sir.
Oh, for sure. Always fun.
Oh, always great.
Sets a good tone.
Love the laugh, yeah.
Well, now back to serious business, sort of. As serious as Jerry Martin is, anyway. And for those of you who don't know, Jerry Martin is a fellow who ran a dispensary in a small town in Saskatchewan for about 4 years. Had a dispensary going there, adhering as best he could to the Health Canada rules, even though dispensaries hadn't been licensed or legal. They had certainly been supported in the courts, and there was a whole bunch of them across Canada. And Jerry Martin had his dispensary there and was helping his people there get access in a town of about 1,000 people with about 1,000 members. And all those people that accessed Jerry's dispensary had to have a doctor's note with a confirmation of diagnosis. And despite a warning from Health Canada, which was impossible to follow, because when you have 1,000 people that are counting on you for access to what is really making their life worth living, you're not going to stop getting it to them, even though Health Canada sends you a letter and tells you to stop doing that. And all the while that you've been doing it, you've been under that threat because it was never legal to do that. And so Jerry kept going, and then the police came and put him in handcuffs and closed down his dispensary and seized his home and his cars and bank accounts and numerous other things. And that was over 3 years ago that happened. But this segment of the show is called the Martin Medical Moment because this moment has been dragging on for over 3 years and it's not over yet. And he still hasn't had his day in court. May never get it, but looks like that could happen. And so here to update us on all of that and tell us a little more about what's going on with the fight to get medical cannabis back into storefronts is the man himself, Jerry Martin. Thank you so much, Jerry. How are you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Did it go all right? You had a good enough Christmas and New Year?
Yeah, I didn't really pay much attention to it this year. I tend to fall on this.
You weren't in jail. I would think that would be good and positive.
No, it was good. It was good.
Because,
I remember getting free socks in there once, though.
Well, so if you did just
the orange,
if you did just spend the last month in jail and you got your free socks, would it really be free socks, or would that be your Christmas present?
I guess so. Yeah. They tried to make you feel a little better back then. I don't think they do that shit anymore. That was like
no more free socks.
30 years ago.
Wow. Well, it's a crazy thing, and so last we were talking about on the show here with your deal is that you've yet to get a court date from the new prosecutor who's taken over from the old prosecutor. The court date was supposed to be in the spring sometime.
It was supposed to be March.
February, March.
Yeah.
Now there's been a little bit perhaps of an unofficial yet to be announced amalgamation of some things that may, mean a different. Is there any updates that you can give us on all that?
Well, I don't think we really get much because I don't think Pat's from Best Buds there. I don't think his pre-trial is until February.
Right.
So I think we'll have to wait until he has his pre-trial.
I see.
And yeah, if it all goes that way anyway.
Well, we're almost into February now anyway.
Yeah, I was looking at the calendar this morning, actually.
Yeah, it's going pretty fast.
All in for my bail. They're used to hearing me for 3 years now.
Oh,
Wish
man.
me a happy new year. Yeah.
Don't forget to call them.
Yeah.
That can be a bad thing.
I do occasionally.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes it's make them wait a
it
week.
was for my friend
They
Dave
don't
Hill.
care.
He did worse than that, though. He had gotten some community service as part of a really good. Well, it was house arrest. It wasn't your situation at all. But he got sick, and he didn't manage to call in to tell them that he was sick, and he wasn't going to do his community service that day or week, and he wasn't going to be able to see them. And VPD showed up on the doorstep and took him away for over 6 months to just do his time. So you got to be careful about that. As long as we're part of this corrupt system, and those are just for cannabis crimes, by the way. Dave's a cannabis warrior, and he was helping people get access to cannabis at Robson Square there. Having an outpost basically for the CSP there, giving away cannabis edibles to people that needed it. People learned that they could go there, and he was there, till after midnight, and every day around Christmas time a couple of years ago now. But eventually he ended up getting this really, a good deal because he didn't go to jail. He had the house arrest, and he was able to be out for most of the day and walking his dog for most of the night. But he failed to do
Did
his.
he get the bracelet?
I don't know if he had a bracelet or
Yeah,
not.
not if he's out. No, I was like one of the
but
first trials for that back in the day too.
He's done his 6 months of hard time now, and he's back out again now. But horrible what they do to people just to protect government monopolies and rackets and shit.
Yeah.
No justification. There was no victim in his wake. There was a bunch of people that were saving their lives because he was brave enough to be there, knowing he was risking such things.
They have a choice and go to a store over there. They want.
No, they can't, Jerry. No, it depends which one
I
you
guess
mean.
now for the edibles.
It depends which ones you mean. If you're talking about the government store.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean.
That's just not
But they
serving
have
people.
that choice, and they're making another choice. So why they're adults, they should be able to make that choice.
They should be able to make that choice. Stressed and Depressed is now closed.
Yeah,
They will be a government store coming up again. While they were open, the lineups were out the door all day, every day. There's a couple other dispensaries right now that are still open and doing similar business that are not government stores. And, all our public servants have to do is have a look and see. Go stand outside a government store for a while and see how many people go in there, and then go stand outside like a Stressed and Depressed before they had to shut down, and see how many people are clamoring to get in there and buy as much as they could because they know that now they're going to have to go buy from the government store. It's not what we want. Like, who are these people? I mean, these are public servants, and they're not giving us what we want. Yeah, it's a cartel.
Yeah,
it's
exactly
a cartel.
what it is. They just don't shoot or cut off your head, but it's worse. They'll lock you up. And that's far worse than death.
Well, and they're murdering people too.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
But they've ruined a lot of lives. They've scared a lot of people. They've kept a lot of people from even knowing. I had my friend in Saskatchewan, Jay Green. Jay's an awesome grower. He's growing for CBD now.
Jay, didn't he own the hemp farms and stuff?
Something like that. I don't know what he owned.
I know
but
Jay, yeah.
Jay's
Yeah,
an
I know
awesome
Jay.
human, and I met him on the first Freedom Tour there, and stayed with him. And he was growing at that time and helping Tim grow for people that had the MMAR licenses to grow, setting up really nice greenhouses in the back there. And Jay himself was growing just monster plants. We were up on top of an 8-foot ladder, barely able to reach the top of plants that were just starting to flower. It was very incredible what he was able to do. But anyway, talking about Jay, totally on the side, he has a cousin. And I met Jay's cousin at one point on I think either the first or second Freedom Tour that I was on. And this cousin was in his 30s and had just in the last year started using cannabis to help him with his insomnia. And he had been a serious insomniac throughout his life. And that is very debilitating. It is really a tough thing to live with for sure. And he finally got talked into using some cannabis, and oh my God, a good indica works really well. He was so mad. I mean, he was a really mad person at the government because he had been denied the knowledge that this could work for him, and he'd suffered his whole life up to that point, not even knowing that this plant, that they will give you a criminal record for having possession of, would help him, with this debilitating health issues. So.
Well, I see they're doing that now. If you don't have their pot, I don't know how they're going to be finding people in like Manitoba or wherever if they don't have government pot, because they don't have the DNA out yet. So I guess they'll just fine you, and you got to prove that your joint wasn't rolled with something.
Well, I don't know if you do, because you're allowed to gift cannabis, and you're allowed to gift it through the mail. And
but
so
for
that
the average person that doesn't understand these laws, comp's going to go up and say, hey, can you prove that's from that store over there? It's already rolled in
exactly.
joint, and they're going to freak
that's what
out
the cops
and already
do.
be scared.
Yep.
And
because that's what they do.
Then they're going to confiscate it, give them a ticket, or far worse, if they've got 31 joints or something instead of 30, they'll get a criminal record.
Yeah, and that's one of the real problems with this whole legalization is the illegal weed and the continuing prohibition and all the consequences that happens out of that. Because that young person that you're referring to in Manitoba there that's going to be harassed by the cop, and the cop's going to pick on him because he can tell that he's somewhat naive, and because he's probably got brown skin.
I was just going to say that.
and he might be wearing clothes that the cop doesn't approve of, or he might have his hair cut in a certain way, or he could have tats on. All those things are wrong. And all those things are part of why prohibition of cannabis is wrong, or drugs in general is wrong, because the police have no business interfering with us citizens in whatever we want to wear, however we want to wear our hair, whatever we're born at. And it's a really big problem. It's been one of the root problems of prohibition since the beginning. It was back in the borderline states in the early part of the century, it was a way to target the migrants that were coming up from Mexico and working there. And certainly the black population, it's been way more targeted. That's why they're doing what they're doing in Illinois.
It's 21st century slavery. All they're doing is they left it in there, So slavery is still legal.
Yeah, it's happening all over the world. Thousands and thousands around the world.
So if they're criminals, then they can lock them up and have them make those corporation products.
Yeah.
And they've been doing that since they abolished slavery.
Yeah, well, they haven't abolished slavery. It's actually, there's overt.
Or whatever, since they
I just saw a graphic of the amount of overt slavery that's going on in the world. There's a lot of it in Europe and Africa and even in the United States. But the slavery you're talking about is that transition that really sort of happened
when
here.
They tried to say they abolished it. They just reworded it.
They did, because, having slaves was not all that easy. It wasn't just free labor.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to house these people. You had to clothe them. You had to give them time off to sleep and a place to sleep. You had to feed them. There was a lot of dissent. It was hard to motivate, all those sorts of things. Now they use criminals, like you say. These private prisons especially, but even the government prisons here in Canada are doing the same thing. Everybody's working. They put these people to work. They make pennies on an hour for what they're doing. And then they siphon all that money back off through the canteen or what have you. But we, the taxpayers, are now paying for these slave masters to have their labor done for them. And we're paying for the place for them to sleep and the food that they eat and the clothes on their back.
And these are all corporate influence laws.
And we're motivating them by, a carrot and a stick. And, and they don't have to do nothing but sit back and get their products made for them. And then they sell their products to government in many cases. A lot of the desks and a lot of the furniture and a lot of the stuff that's in government that's purchased is done by the inmates that are doing those tasks. It's horrible. It's good for them. These are smart people, right?
Oh, they're very smart. They've been at this quite a while.
Yeah. They use taxpayer money and they use taxpayer energy to go and fight wars around the world to capture property, to capture oil reserves and all of that. They're very smart. They've got this deal going on where they've synthesized the active ingredient of plants, because plants is where our medicine is, because we're all made out of plants, because that's the food that we eat, that's how we build our bodies. We're made out of plant cells and animals that ate plants. It's all through plants. And so they've synthesized the active ingredients, captured it, patented it, charged like 3,000% markup on what their costs are, and then forced us all into using it with our own money by running a protection racket, just like the gangs do for their drugs. The pharmaceuticals do it, but they do it with taxpayer dollars and police forces. It's fucked up, but they're really smart. Like,
You know what's the worst part is that people fall for it. the majority of people think it's the right thing.
Well, or at least if they know it's the wrong thing, they don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
You know, they all believe there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
They might be somewhat right, but I don't think they're right. I think if we all did some little thing about it, then that's a whole bunch if you put it all together. So we should all do little, and it's fun to do shit because this world's fucked, and you don't like to see these people rape babies and all the rest of the shit that they're doing. They're murdering people. They're horribly murdering people. They're leaving babies to die of starvation. Where they could be growing cannabis and using the cannabis seeds.
Fires.
It goes on and on. I mean, we could go on and on way too much, but. I guess there's a couple other things going on just briefly. There's Heidi Chartrand still waiting for, I think, the 15th of this month when they're going to revisit her case and be able to include the whatever happened in the ends decision back there in Halifax. I mentioned that the Halifax police just raided 2 more dispensaries there. So that's horrible.
Chris's, I don't know if they're Chris's were they Chris's? It said pharmacists on there.
Yeah, that's the farm ones. There's 2 of them in different locations in Halifax.
His name wasn't on the in the article.
Chris Enns was not in that one. No, that's a different one. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll revisit those in the near future, and
the pharmacist picture with the article.
We'll get them to give us updates. Heidi's been great at communicating with me about what's going on there, and we'll see how that develops. And Sarah McNeil is still waiting for her thing in Red Deer in February.
A few weeks probably.
And I'm sure there's a bunch of other things going on in the courts that I'm not aware of that we'll try to get aware of and let you know as we go. So thanks, Jerry. I appreciate it a lot, and. We'll see you again next week and see what else is going on. We didn't talk at all about microdelics, but that's still going on, I'm sure. So.
Yeah. No, it's doing good. And an interview with site Double Blind Magazine today.
Cool.
Yeah, one more.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing about all that coming up next week. All right. Now we get to the main meat of the show. And good to have the 420 session before that happens to get in the right frame of mind for that. And very happy to have as my main guest this week, Rick the Camel. Rick's an entertainer, but he's also very much involved in the growing and distribution of cannabis through the BC Bud Depot. He's the operations manager and has been doing really fine work in just promoting cannabis and medical cannabis and bringing a bit of entertainment to it as well, as I've shared numerous stages with him over the last decade and a half or so, and a very funny guy, but a lot of information as well. So without much further ado, welcome to the show, Rick.
Hi, Happy New Year, my man.
Happy New Year.
We'll give your sound guy a couple of seconds here to adjust my voice and everything like that.
I don't know if our equipment can handle it.
I know how it is. Hey, everybody out there, how's it going? Happy New Year.
This just popped out from behind my book here. I want to mention this book. Where are we? There we are.
All right.
Peter McWilliams, he was a great crusader for the rights of individuals, sovereign, autonomous beings to engage in whatever behaviors they want without interference from government. And he passed away. The government virtually killed him by denying him medicine that he needed. He was a serious medical patient and choked on his own vomit. But anyway, a total aside. I didn't plan this at all. This is, it's what happens when you broadcast live. This fell out from behind my book there because Neil had brought these to me to say that maybe I want to show these on the show. These are candies that are fake cigarettes. You want to see those?
Yeah, I'll see one.
You ever have those, Rick?
I've never had one.
I used to eat these when I was a kid. They
I
had
see.
chocolate
It's old
ones
school
and candy
bubble
ones.
gum. The old school ones.
I didn't have gum. It wasn't gum when I was a kid. There was
Ew,
a pink flavored candy that was in some of them. Got kind of hard, and then there was chocolate in other ones. It was kind of hard to unwrap the
Do you
paper
remember
off.
The Popeye cigarettes?
Yeah, like that same
Remember those
thing.
ones?
Yes, I do. And for me, these were a precursor to me starting smoking cigarettes when I was 10 years
They
old.
even say that with the Popeyes.
I was quite interested in cigarettes.
I used to see my family members smoking, and of course I would, have a
So-
Popeye cigarette.
Where were you born and raised?
It's raised in Toronto. Right?
see.
I'm a Newfoundlander by family. I did all my schooling in a suburb in Toronto area called Scarborough. It's now part of the mega city.
Right.
Right? It is still kind of the suburbs and everything like that. But before we got into that, I know me and you met the other day. and we were talking about the BC Safety Unit.
The community.
Keeping everybody safe.
The community safety.
Yeah, that's exactly.
No, they're not keeping everybody safe.
No, of
just
course
the licensed
Of
producers.
course not. I'm
Just
I'm
the
joking.
we need to be clear about that.
So it set me off thinking that night. It's like, oh my goodness, what are they going to do next? Like, especially after all the dispensaries are gone. Do you want that closer to me?
Yeah.
Further from me?
A little bit closer.
All right. So, what are they going to do? What are they going to do after all the dispensaries are down? And then when I came in here today, and I've listened to the last half hour, it was all about, how social it is. Our pot smoking. And it's always been like that. Even if it was in your grandma's shed with your 3 buddies or something like that. It was always a social
That was your Ontario
thing.
experience, was it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Our somebody's basement, somebody's mom's basement for
Yeah.
years and years. And a lot of times you had to wait for the guy to come over with the weed. So you were there like 3 hours with no weed and you're fucking 3 or 4 buddies and you're waiting for the good weed to come, right?
Sounds like a commercial for BC Bud Depot.
I've definitely brought prizes for everybody.
Did you?
Well, not quite in the room.
I got to know more about
Some
you.
way you're going to give it out, some way, somehow.
I mean, you don't have to tell me, but I got to ask. I want to know a little bit more about your time growing up and in Ontario and stuff like that.
All right.
Were you involved with the cannabis movement at all, or just involved with cannabis as a recreational experience?
I found cannabis very young. I have a hippie type of mother who still smokes.
Okay,
to
that's
this
cool.
day. I found weed in her purse when I was 9 years old.
I see.
Wondered what it was.
Right.
Took my best friend Timmy Brooks to some construction shed, and we got stoned.
Hey,
Right. Then I had an older aunt. I'm the oldest of 31.
you had probably seen it consumed by your mom
And
and,
I
her
smelt
friends.
it, and I get like, what is
So-
that? And even then, the adults
Yeah.
were hiding it.
Right.
They'd go out in little groups outside and stand in the corner of a backyard, right? Even
Yeah.
if it's their house, even if it was their rental, they would do like stuff like that.
So they weren't doing it right in front of you.
No, but of course.
But you knew it was around.
Everybody smelled like it
Yeah.
as they came in. I was never a smoker until in my 20s.
I
So a
see.
smoker of cigarettes.
Oh, cigarettes.
Cigarettes itself. So I was always in hockey and stuff like that.
Nice. Back in
Right
Ontario.
after my first experience, I had an aunt move in with me. Now I say she's my aunt, but she's only 3 years, or I think 4 years older than me.
Yeah, that's possible.
Well, wasn't she a troublemaker herself? Right? So, and she used to be able to get, they were already pre-rolled, and they were in the high school smoking areas, which they don't have anymore, right?
Okay, I don't know.
And it was 50 cents a joint.
Wow.
But it was, it was that Mexican brick weed.
Right. Ontario rural weed.
Yeah, you got it, seeds and sticks and stuff like that. But, yeah, right from there, I was always a pothead.
So speaking of seeds, did you grow it all when you were young like that?
Not until 18 was my first time growing. So we're
still in
talking
Ontario?
In Ontario.
Yeah.
It wasn't very good. It was outdoors, but, I think I planted like 50, but I got like 4. I didn't know anything about deers or skunks
Well,
or other people.
after that you did.
Well, you start to learn.
Experience. That
start
thing that you
learning.
get just moments after you really needed it.
Sure, sure. And I had an older friend that said, "Oh, you got to grow in the swamps because nobody likes to walk in the swamps."
Right.
And by the next season, I went up north, northern Ontario, and I brought, I think it was 200 plants all ready and stuff like that.
Nice.
And I had the hip waders on.
Nice.
And I walked through the swamps and I placed one here, one there, one here, one there. And I think I ended up getting like 50 or 60 plants that were like full size.
Nice.
In the middle of this swamp, there's a little lake and there's an island.
Yeah.
This is the funny story about it. So it's me and a friend. We got our clothesline set up. We got all our weed dried. Well, wouldn't you know, like 2 older guys in a kayak come up.
Oh, man.
It's like, hey! And as soon as they see the weed, it was like, okay, we're in. So the very next, we could see them camping like a little bit distant down the lake, but the very next morning, that canoe was missing. And I tell you, me and my buddy packed up that weed so fast.
No doubt.
And ran out of that swamp,
Yeah.
right? But that was the first big crop, but that was for bud. That was, I always grew for bud, right, kind of deal. And then I started getting more into the seed production. Now, I even did grow bud, we have a common friend, Derek Pedro.
Right? I know Derek,
He's now with Weed MD and stuff like that, but his original greenhouses were for like 1,300 plants.
So when did you come to BC?
10 years ago was my first time. I came for a year and a half, lived at Quillican Beach.
I see.
It was, the Vancouver Island's absolutely beautiful. Beautiful area. And now I've been here now for a steady 5 years.
I see.
I've always been a world traveler.
So has it been only 5 years since you and I first shared a stage somewhere? Probably at a
No,
420?
no. We,
Because it seems longer than that to me.
I first met you, I was here, as I said, 10 or 12 years ago, and it was at the art gallery.
Right, because
And
that
it was
sounds
420
much more
the art
reasonable to me as
gallery.
far as time goes.
And we didn't have a booth or anything, but I just brought all kinds of things for you to hand out.
Yep,
And
okay,
do
I remember
believe
now.
That's the first time we
Yep,
met.
exactly.
Right? And then I think you were at a Toronto show or the Saskatchewan show.
Oh, I've done too many to know. I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm the same way now.
Yeah,
It gets all mixed up.
Yeah, it does.
It really does. It really does. over
Not
here.
just because I have to consume a fair amount of cannabis, at these events, that they all blur together after. And they don't all blur together, but
No.
But
There's
a lot of them
ones
that
are
do.
better
There's been, but there's some real standouts for sure. One of my favorites with you was the High Times Cup.
Well, no, it wasn't the High Times Cup then.
No, okay, that's right.
It
Sorry.
was our
yes, that's
original
right.
one.
Yes, exactly.
We
I'm
had
so
an
sorry.
opportunity. It all started with, let's just have a couple of bands and do like a night, right, kind of deal. But we'll hire one good band.
So you weren't there for when it went the next year when it was
I
the High
did not
Times
show up
Cup. You
in
did
protest.
not show up in protest.
I did not show up in protest.
And I went to try to
And
build the bridges.
I organized everything of that, right down to the last week. And then, yes, there was a little bit politics.
The
behind
Bio
the
Cup is
scenes
what you guys
with,
put
They
on.
were throwing some vendors out because other vendors were coming, which
Right.
is totally, So
I tried to
American
quell
vendors
all
were
this.
coming and
I
they
tried to
didn't.
quell the storm that day.
I know you did. I know you
I
did.
did.
I know you did.
And it's certainly not out of any disrespect for you guys. I have
No.
the utmost respect for you guys and what you managed to pull off the year before. And that, in fact, was so good.
I think that was our best, the best.
Well, it would have got better. I know it would have. I know you, and I know the other people involved, and it would have got better. But it was so good that High Times wanted it. And
Right away, within a week after us having that concert, they were calling.
yeah, and they made an offer that couldn't be refused.
No, not at first and stuff
No?
like that.
Well, it wasn't accepted
they
then because the eventual offer was pretty good.
They kept just
Well, eventually they made an offer.
dragging along, and then
Okay.
it wasn't until like June of the next year they got serious. It's like, well, hey man, we've already got things organized. We don't know
Right.
if we even want you to buy them.
Yeah, I do remember all that. I meant
that's when they made the
eventually.
offer.
Eventually, they
Yes.
made it so that you really didn't have
Of
much
course,
choice.
and we didn't get a dime on it. So we're still they're. Let's say we're a giant creditor to them.
Wow,
Oh.
really? I
Yep.
had no idea.
Yeah, they didn't pay anybody here. They're in breach of contract, and you never know what happens, Neil.
Wow.
So
Well,
it could be
shame
coming
on High
back as,
Times. What's
the
going on,
original.
guys? Come on.
Uh,
I mean, we did our best to help them put on a good show, and I thought they did put on a good show. I thought the production values were high, and
Yeah.
the streaming content was really good. It wasn't attended as well as they would have liked. I understand
well,
that, but it was their
it's
first
because
venture
of the
here.
politics they brought
And it was because of
involved.
the quick turnaround. A couple of weeks before, they're trying to
and
change
that's-
everything, and
it change this, change
know,
that, change this, and it upset a lot
and they
of
did
our
their
main
best.
vendors.
I understand it was a really tough
sure,
thing. That
sure.
certainly the people they had on the ground were very good people that tried
Yeah,
very hard to
yeah.
do what they could with a very bad situation.
Yeah, of course.
But I didn't realize that you guys hadn't been paid, and that's not
Still
that's
to this
not
day,
okay.
we send a monthly bill to them every month.
Well, that's not okay because you guys had a really good event
And
there.
even the place was.
And had they not made the deal to take it away from you,
Yeah.
you guys would have put on an even better show
Well,
the
they've done
following
it
year.
with Cannabis now. They've done it with, I don't know if you've
no
heard.
way to build a
I just
reputation.
I don't want to keep mentioning their names, just whatever.
All this is spontaneous for me. We don't
yeah,
rehearse
that's what you
anything.
said,
I don't know
it'd be
these things.
spontaneous.
I'm not in every loop. That's for sure. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's why I have you people on the show is to fill me and everybody else in so we can be in the loop and we can know these things because it is important to know that.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then that's not okay. And
It's not okay. It's
it
not
shouldn't
okay.
just be let slide.
And I certainly wouldn't do business with them again.
I see.
Let's put it that way. And there's certainly a lot of vendors, and even the landowner would never do business with them.
All you got is your reputation.
That's it. That's
all
part
you
of
got.
it.
That's all you got.
That's part of it.
So if you
So
want to
can
continue,
I finish this public safety?
please do. This is
Oh,
your
man,
segment.
'cause I even researched this after.
Oh,
Right? It's like, so what are they going to do once they make everybody safe? Right? It's like They're going to have to kind of like come up with their way for their taxpayer paycheck.
Well, I thought it would
And
be
you know these
online.
people
Is that where you're going?
75 to 125 per year for sure. All these officers.
I'm sure they are. I'm more.
It's more.
There's
probably
perks.
over the 100,000. Right, and stuff like that.
Bonuses.
So I
bonuses.
thought,
If the dispensary had more than 3,000 sick people that you've now blocked access to, you get a bonus for that.
Sure.
It's like killing old people in the street driving.
Yeah, put them on icebergs and let them just float out.
That's right. I'm sure they get a bonus for that. And the more medicine they seize to keep away from people, the more they get as well.
So I've come up with a list for the safety unit that they can start.
They're probably listening.
They can start making people safe again.
I don't know. Do you want to say this? Because if they're listening, they might not be smart enough to figure this out themselves.
Right.
Are you giving them targets?
Yeah. So their next. So
Dr. Allen won't be happy.
What they can go after next is caribou. Reindeer.
Oh, reindeer.
They eat mushrooms and they go as they're on long migrations. So caribou could be their next target.
Well, they're dangerous as hell.
Well, they're dangerous.
They are.
Public safety.
Absolutely.
Public safety is
deer
mandatory.
and their relatives.
Deers and elk will eat mushrooms.
Well, but all of those because they're all part of the big family there.
Well, this
the elk and the reindeer and the deer. They kill more humans than any other animal.
Moose kill more people than people.
Yeah, and then every other animal.
Yeah. Like you hit a moose in a car. My grandfather almost died.
I don't know if it's than any other than what people kill. It might be, but it's
in
more.
Newfoundland,
I know it's
sure,
more than any
hard.
other animal. For
right,
sure.
Newfoundland, there's like one murder every 2-3 years, but moose kill like 7 to 10 people every year.
Oh, you're just talking
killers.
about in Canada in general.
Yeah,
in Canada. Yeah.
But I know Norway, Finland, Sweden, it's a big problem too.
Oh yeah,
it's a big problem. You hit a giant moose, right?
Great new task for the CSU. Yeah. That's a great thing for them to focus on.
Do you know bighorn sheep? There is a lichen that gets them high. So it's just a moss. Yep. It takes 10 years to grow. They will protect their little area, right, and make sure it goes just right and stuff like that. I had no idea until I started Googling animals that get high in BC. Right?
They guard the garden for 10 years until it's ripe enough to get them high.
The garden,
and they get high, right?
Stuff, and then they get high. They eat it a little bit at a time, but they have to save some so it keeps regenerating.
There are a lot of animals getting high. I have researched some of that.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the point. That's your point.
My whole point is this: it's a social thing. Right?
Do you think it's when the crows eat the rotten berries that they get drunk? That's when they start dive bombing humans?
Maybe.
Because we could alert the CSU to that.
Yeah, it's a safety.
And they could go after those berries too.
It becomes a safety issue, I think.
Yeah.
And that's how they're going to have to justify it. Because
Carry on with your list.
Right.
I like the list.
We've already made cougars. There's a plant in BC that they act like that now. They'll roll it and everything like that. Wild horses eat wild hemp and they eat a weed called loco. And I thought it was like, Mexican dirt weed or something like that, loco. No, but it's like a weed that they eat that gets them high as fuck.
Well, I think in India, loco weed is cannabis.
No, but this is a weed called
and they got
loco.
Their cows getting into it all the time.
There's a Latin name to it, right?
It's not cannabis, it's another weed.
It's not cannabis. It's I don't even know if it's related. Now we get into the more funny
because that the CSU believes cannabis is the most dangerous, so they have to wipe that one out.
Yes, of course. That's safety first.
Safety first,
right? Safety first. Dolphins. Now they say here that they'll do this.
Don't tell me dolphins are high when they're jumping out of the water like that.
That make them horny.
They're chasing females, jumping out of water like that.
Viagra, right now they're cute as fuck, but I don't want to see them out there with a little dolphin board.
I mean, they're phallic to begin with.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Jumping out of the water like that. And there's a rhythm to it, like.
Yes, especially when
as they hit the water.
Especially when they're doing that.
Now, but that kind of drug is legal. That's not dangerous, apparently. You can go and get a blue pill, to make your sex life better.
Okay.
That's legal.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mexican pills.
Yeah.
So the two most, they are the criminals.
The real criminals,
the animal world.
The real criminals in the animal kingdom.
The BC Public Safety Unit has to go after these two animals first.
All right.
Raccoons. Raccoons are an issue. They will eat and drink anything that gets them high or drunk. And they're in our backyard.
Now, raccoons are very smart.
They're in our backyard.
Raccoons are very smart.
No.
And
very smart.
There's two different types of raccoons.
Very smart.
There's the urban raccoon, and there's the
Yes,
you know,
of course.
and the ones that live in the city, they have adapted over generations to know where their food and drug sources are.
Sure.
And I would imagine that they know just where to go and get the best shake. That's
I'm sure they,
amongst other things.
And they're well known to, if you put out your empties and all that, they'll tip your empties over. And,
they will, yeah.
They'll sip all that.
And I've seen raccoon. In fact, the last one I saw looked like a bear. He looked like a small bear just roaming down Victoria Drive there in the middle of the day. Just,
garbage night. It's been the best night ever.
He didn't care about anything.
So, the very last one, of course.
The most dangerous? Did you leave the most?
This is the most dangerous, and they have to go after these first. Bears. They will eat fermented fruit. They eat mushrooms, and have even been known to be fuel sniffers. So if you leave your diesel fuel out and stuff like that, they'll come out and they'll sniff that gas and get high.
Well, and you don't just need drugs to get you into those types of dangerous states of mind. Bears are hangry. For a small portion of the year, they're very hangry.
Yeah, but
so they are dangerous.
Wait,
I agree.
Apples ferment, like crab apples and all that. They'll wait
until they ferment,
and then eat them and just be, I guess, drunk bear in the bush, right?
One of these days, maybe I'll do a little rant at the beginning about all the other animals that do drugs.
Well, that's what got me going when you were over the other day. It's like, oh, well, you know what? We're also worried about us and humans. And, we're just trying to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, and you heard me talking about the dangers of being high.
Yeah.
High is not a dangerous state of mind. High is an alert, active, like right in the moment state of mind. It's eyes wide open.
Relaxing.
And
a pain reliever.
They used to say cannabis slowed things down. That was one of the things they said made it a demon drug because it slowed things down. In fact, the jazz musicians, they said, were able to fit more notes into a regular bar than regular musicians because they were smoking weed and time had slowed down for them.
The devil's lettuce.
But you talk to any hockey goalie, you played hockey, and that's when you're at the top of your game. That when you're high in that moment, and everything slows right down, and it becomes a much easier thing. So all this knock against the effects of cannabis, when the real problem are people either stumbling and fighting because of what's in their system, or falling down dead because it's hard to measure the right amount of this and that in those powders that you're going to shoot in your arm.
Exactly.
And even there, the behavior there shouldn't be criminalized. Some of the sources of that should probably be criminalized.
Where it is. It should be the source.
But even those sources of that, they really can't throw rocks when they live in glass houses, and they can't be criminalizing people for supplying those things on an underground market when they don't allow for those things to be supplied properly and in a safe way on the above ground market. The whole network of illegal drugs is all completely fueled by the attempt to prohibit those drugs.
Of course. So you look at Portugal as a fine example.
Yeah, exactly.
They had a huge heroin problem 15 years ago. Now you have hardly any kind of problem there. I've been to Portugal. It's a lovely.
Well, they
country,
cut their problems down by tenfold and more.
Yes,
is what they did, and they took a much more humane approach to how they deal with
it. It's in the healthcare system, not the criminal system.
It should never be in the criminal system.
And that's the biggest thing.
It should never have been in the criminal system.
Somebody is now getting help, especially somebody that has a bad addiction. You're pre-guess, do 10 years and 15 years of crack. Like, that's a heavy addiction. And he probably just needed somebody to help him out, not throw him in jail.
And with all due respect to Chris Bures and people that believe in that, that person with that 10, 15-year problem addiction probably had a problem childhood.
Yes.
Or he had a problem injury in the workplace.
Thing.
Or he had some extremely traumatic event happen and, to get led down that road.
Sure.
It's rare.
A bad operation.
It's rare that people, they like to give you the illusion that if you do heroin, like if you smack a little bit of heroin 3 weekends in a row, you're done. You're an addict. You're hooked.
Yeah.
That is so not true. That is very true for a percentage of people.
Sure.
Because what they just found is that there's a way to address that pain or that emptiness or that whatever it is that's going on with them that's making life intolerable.
Yeah.
And so now they found some way to have a crutch for that or a solution for that. But the majority of people, and it is in the quite large majority, they can go down that road with their friends and do that. And I'm not recommending anybody do that. I never did that. I didn't like needles. I'm so happy happy for that.
I'm
I
the
don't
same
recommend
way.
anybody ever try that.
I never
For all
liked
you
the
know,
chemical feel.
you might be one of those people that are going to get that relief that's going to keep you going back down that road until it's a problem, and it really can be a problem. So. I don't, that's not where we're at.
I know. We were supposed to.
But the majority of people been there, done that, and start there and don't go there. It's that, and there's always been that percentage of the population that ends up in that space, however they get there.
No.
And that's that same population, as we found out through the studying of these people, that they've suffered traumas in their life. They're literally the broken and abused children of our society that haven't got the tools to properly unwind
They didn't get
the
the proper
trauma.
health care.
And haven't had the proper health care. That's another
You
way
don't
to put it.
get it in
I'd
the
say that
criminal-
they haven't been able to unwind.
You don't get in the criminal system.
When you
Not
get out
at
of your
all.
childhood, you got to unwind a bunch of shit. You got to back up and redo some things, because some stuff's not right that comes out of that. And some people are so broken by the time they get to that point that they're for the whole rest of their lives not going to be able to unwind that properly.
And I'm sure you see a lot of that with your own.
we
program.
do see a lot of that with our
With your-
program.
and you had the
Absolutely.
lineup picture yesterday.
People
Wow.
that are broken for no fault
What
of
a
their
lineup
own,
for all that rain too, and there's just standing in the
There's, I get more and more disgusted every time I go there. That these people are so expressing the value that they hold for what we're doing there for them, and our government is nowhere to be seen. Even our media is nowhere to be seen. They should be down there every time we're at Van Du handing out about 1,000 high-dose edibles to about 300 people.
Yeah.
That is an epic, newsworthy event. There should be reporters there every time we're
And
there, like as if it's never happened
program
before.
wasn't working, there'd be 6 people.
That's right,
And you
exactly.
see the lineup. I know,
Exactly.
you post those pictures, and that's
Those
that's
are
part
people
of the
who
reason we'd like to sponsor your program too as BC Bud Depot.
and you
with
have
what we can.
you've kept us going numerous different points in time, and again now we've got a bit of a lull right now, as I mentioned to you. You're the only ones I called, but I did put it out there that we could use some donations.
Sure.
One of our larger donators is having trouble being able to donate, and so we.
Yes.
But you stepped right up and helped us, and that's how it
Even though
continues. And
we
not the
don't-
first time.
We don't grow bud.
Several times.
We grow bud to test bud, but only little amounts.
Right. So yeah,
Right.
I was going to get to
It's
that.
personal amounts.
We've talked about that. We've talked about. Tell me about the BC Bud Depot. What do you guys do there? How are you trying to further access?
Well, we're always working, with the strains we got. We do have we call it the vault that we've collected from all over the world. From
You got some of those great old strains from history.
I brought some great old strains actually,
Wow.
and I was going to put them together as a package, and maybe some of your guests could either come down here and pick up a prize.
We will have to consider a way to get these into hands of people that would
There you go.
appreciate them.
Of course. Now,
And further the interests of the show.
we were the first international cup winners in the High Times Cup when it was only. I'm good for now.
So that's
I got a little bit of popcorn. But yeah, when it was only one cup a year, it was Amsterdam in November.
Right.
And we were the first international company to win. That wasn't a Dutch company.
Nice.
And we won with Godbud.
And what year was that?
2005, even though we did enter 2004, but 2005 was the big win.
Right. So 15 years ago.
Yeah, right. And then won again 2007, 2009. That's all first place. That's not including the multiple second and thirds.
Wow.
Right. So it started from there.
So you're essentially a seed company.
We get calls every day that say, can you send us some bud for delivery? It's like we have nothing to do. We are a genetics company. We're either creating all our old strains, and keeping them going, or we have always a new development.
So you
always
sell
try
seeds to
create-
people.
It's seeds.
the key.
That's what we do, and that's I even brought today. I got them up there. Little packs of 12 packs. We do feminized and everything. We are probably the largest Canadian seed bank for sure. Right? Actually, we won an
Headband.
award. We won an award this year.
ECBD.
We didn't even know we were going to win this. Oh yeah. So look, that's pine warp. So that's going to go to your outdoor grower
See if we
because
can
that's
get
an
it.
outdoor, and that is
It's still a
that's
little.
still that's 707 headband. Sorry, I've got old eyes. That's for your indoor
We're
grower.
still a little bit fuzzy.
There it
we
is.
go.
Oh
I want your face.
yeah.
You gotta put it right.
You got to put it in front of you, probably. Something like that.
It wants my face.
So
Oh.
the 707 headband.
You
is
could
the
have
old
my
school one.
face.
That's why I brought it. Right?
Nice. Fine.
Easy to grow. You're gonna get bud off it. Stuff like that. It's a little prone to bugs and stuff like that, as all headbands are. But it's usually strong. So you know what I mean. As long as you take care of your plant and make it happy and healthy. Then I also brought the old school BC Pine More, which are the outdoor.
Nice.
Those babies and nice.
We'll try this again because I got to practice this apparently.
So that's old school outdoors BC right there. That's
There we
those
go.
things.
I
If
don't
you
think I did a
take
good
care of
job.
them and you got a big enough fence, you can grow those things 8 to 10 feet.
So you're talking outdoors.
They are strictly an outdoor
So-
type of seed, right?
People are going to be growing now.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people
Yeah.
that couldn't grow before are going to grow now.
Yeah.
Some people still can't because of the situation they're living in.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that are. Outdoor is good, better,
Yeah, well, it has different tones each
cheaper.
type. It's cheaper, for sure.
And when you say, you know, people got to look after their plants, I'm told that people can pay too much attention to their plants. You got to be careful not to overwater.
People overwater, over-fertilize all the time. Right? Overwatering is one of the worst.
Do you have
now,
a source of info, a video that you would recommend?
Well, you could just go
book?
to our site.
Go to your site? Oh, right. That's what I want to do.
BCBudDepot.com. You'll see all the strains and all the.
So do
strain
you have
descriptions.
suggestions on how to grow and those types of things?
A little bit, and you could call in, and our operators will give you a little bit of how to germinate and all that. But
Okay.
every grower is different. There's soil growers, right? There's.
Well, but I'm talking about the people that haven't
Aeroponics,
figured out what type of
hydroponics.
grower they are yet. Because there's a lot of people that are now going to grow plants and they really don't know where to start.
Well, your
so
friend
I tell
Johnny
them,
B's got the 4 grow system start.
sorry,
Johnny B.
Johnny B. He says grow your 4.
Grow your 4. That's it.
I
that's
say
it.
grow more than 4.
I know.
I'm gonna have
I
Johnny
know.
on the
You're
show,
more
and we're gonna
militant,
talk
that's
about
for
that.
Sure. But it's pretty good. As you see, he's got it all set up and all that.
Just grow your 4.
Right, and he wants to get involved maybe with us too. That we have the 4 seed packs going, so BC Bud Depot might get involved in that. But he has added one of our other brand new products. This is Willasonite. They're called Willamo, we called it.
Cool.
Right?
You got that one? Oh, yeah.
Got that one. That's
Willamo.
calcium silicate from the most purest line of it there is. There's only 5 lines.
That's for powdery mildew.
It does powdery mildew, balances pH. They don't like us saying this on our package, but it helps with all the, like any kind of root pest and all that. There's no life cycle. It's silicate. So it's like little tiny razor blades for those bugs, grubs, pupa, right? And then they turn into larvae and down they go to your roots, or they come up and be tripes and all that. Gone. It eliminates the whole life cycle and stuff like that, right?
Right. So where do they get that? Off your website?
You can go to Willamo.com.
Okay.
Which we are so surprised. We did a 1.5-year phase trial of this, which you can actually see at Willamo.com. Show it again. Johnny showed it. He has this in his 4-grow now. He has added this. He's had great results too. And what it is it's calcium silicate. It's like having diatomaceous earth and glacial rock dust combined.
And would you use that on outdoor grows as well?
Oh yeah. We are now selling to coffee plantations because, believe it or not, powdery mildew is a problem around the world now.
Yeah. It's a problem in our backyard.
Everybody's backyard. Our parks.
Okay.
Our parks. And people with asthma and all that. It's not a
So
good
how do
thing.
you apply that? Do you just put it on the root?
You can use it as top dressing. You can
on the
actually-
soil.
On the soil.
Would you put it on the
can-
plant?
Not the plant itself, so
Not
you're
the
not
plant itself.
touching any of the leaf,
Right.
and anything like that. What it is making yourself, it's making your cell structure healthy. So a healthy plant, right, with good cell structure will not let the pores in. Because what happens? Everybody sees powdery mildew on top, but it actually starts from the bottom
I see.
and then works its way up to the top of the leaf of the plant. All right. In our warehouse, we used to have to spray sulfur and all that all the time. Really work. We haven't
Yeah.
sprayed in 2 years.
I see.
2 years now.
Nice.
All right. So Johnny's now tested that out, and he's going to use that on that 4-grow.
Cool.
Right, and hopefully we're
Because
making.
it's not just throw in some seeds and you get a plant either.
Well-
I mean, you can overwater and overtend your plants.
Yeah.
But it does take not just care, but there is some costs involved. I've been going on the show about the overpriced cannabis and based on what the cost of production is.
Well,
It's not completely free or cheap to grow
Sure.
cannabis indoor or outdoor if you're going to do it properly.
properly.
Yeah, if you're going to do it properly.
Right, but if you
You can just throw some seeds in the ground, but most people don't do that. And you wouldn't do that if you were any type of a commercial operation at all.
Sure.
There are certainly costs involved, and there's some production costs, labor costs, and other things as well.
Well, if you do it out of love for the plant itself and knowing what your reward is at the end, it does, like, 4 plants is pretty easy.
So
to
what's
take
your
care of.
reward at the end?
Indoors, quarter pound to a half pound on a nice plant, right?
Is it money?
And so
Is it money, or is
it's
it
money saved?
or is it the end result?
You and the wife.
So it's money saved.
You and the wife love watching Netflix, and you guys can go through an ounce of weed.
There you go.
But for a couple, they do not even $1,000 investment, and both of them take care of it. Both of them trim it. Both of them, wait the. Nobody waits anymore. I guess 1 or 2 weeks and they're already smoking it. But yeah, right.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like you wait to cure it.
That might change.
So indoors, you're getting 1 to 3 pounds, depending how good you grow, what strain you have.
Right.
Because everybody's going, well, if you grow sativa, it's going to be less.
So
you grow indica, you're going to grow lots.
what do you know about curing? Because the government's not properly curing, or the government producers
don't
aren't
cure
curing their
nothing,
weed
right,
at all. And you talked about how people get into their buds a little bit before they should.
Yeah.
What should they do?
We call it burping. I use mason jars. I'm a mason jar guy. I never stick it in no freezer or anything like that. But what you have to be consistent with is the first week or so, you got to leave that container open for 4 hours. But remember to close it again so it can all sweat and all
Not
that.
for too long, because
Not
it
for
can
too long, and each day it gets a little bit less,
Right.
right? And now, I just burp them. So it's a matter of just opening the jar, even though I'm not going to smoke that jar now and stuff like that.
Right.
You burp them, it kind of lets out the gas, you keep them there. And for 3 months, you got the best bud there is. Now I know people say, cure for 3 months. I cure for a month. It's about a month, then you get full flavor. Full flavor. There's none of that chlorophyll left in there, that taste.
It gets more potent if you cure it
Yeah, and
properly.
it brings out all the terps and stuff like that.
Tastes
and,
better,
Yeah,
more
it
potent,
tastes
burns
better,
better.
and usually more mellow on the throat.
So the government says you can spray your cannabis fresh flowers and drying buds.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Wait, yeah, what do you think of that?
I think that's insane.
Like, isn't
I never
that
heard
insane?
of that. I never heard of that at all.
It's because a lot of these companies are having problems because they don't know anything about growing.
And so the government wants you to do that because they're afraid of microbes, and they say that you shouldn't
that's
have
part of
microbes.
it. Powdery
So-
mildew.
So the microbes that they're talking about is the plant actually, having mildew and having other types of mold on it and things
Yeah.
like that. If it's cured properly, then that's really not an issue.
Yeah.
And if it's packaged properly, what do you think of the packaging that they got going on?
Oh, look.
I don't need that. I'm sorry for the dumb question.
Did anybody consult an environmentalist?
They didn't ask you about that.
Like, come on, man. Right? Like, there's more trees and plastic made for 1 gram.
And single use.
It's single use. It's
Because they
over.
determined that because there's narcotics in it that you can't
You have to
use
throw
it
it
again.
out. You can't take it back and recycle it.
I mean,
Right?
oh my
Now,
God.
recycling places won't take that kind of stuff. You just got a garbage out. I've never bought at a government store, so I don't
Me
know.
neither.
I've only seen
not
the
bought a
packaging.
thing. I won't give them any money because I don't think they're going to use it for the right reasons. They don't
promise
deserve
you.
it.
But tried.
But I don't want their weed either.
Tried somebody else's God bud that they said came from us. It was brutal. One toke gave me a.
And it doesn't, there's a lot of
was black,
speculation. I caught a little bit of
dry.
Jared's show on Friday. They were talking about how, what they say is a strain does not smell
even
like that
close.
strain,
Not
doesn't
even
look like
close.
that strain. It's like they just kind of make a decision, oh, well, we can name it this, and that's a good seller or
Yeah.
something, and nobody will know the difference,
Yeah.
right? But the connoisseurs know the difference.
Of
Unfortunately,
course.
maybe the general public doesn't. And
think
maybe
so
the general
now.
public's
It's
going to get a
starting
bad
to-
name. I mean, maybe they're just going to give weed a bad name to some people.
Well, and where's the medical part? It was all medical at first. Now it's just.
Well, how can they call
They don't even
themselves
talk that
non-medical? That's what they define themselves
Yes,
at. They
yes.
want to purposely say that because they don't want anything to
And
do
they
with
wanna
being
shut
medical.
down
But yet they're going to
places that
shut
are
down the medical
medical.
access.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Makes no sense, dude.
It's the community stupid unit.
No.
I mean, it's not the community safety
No,
unit. They're not.
that's what I mean. They're going to run out of a job soon.
There's a lot of moose out there.
Caribou and bears. So, right. But yeah, like they got to start taxing those bears.
No, the community stupid unit. How stupid do they really think people are? Is what I mean.
And not only that, we know what happened like 3-4 years ago here. They were giving out city licenses, and they just became.
That's another topic.
Non-grata right there. Like they just wiped that right out. It's like, well, that was from the city. Now we're the province. People had to pay lawyers, meetings, setups, more lawyers, another meeting. Like that all cost a huge bunch of money. Then they charged you out of your butt for that license.
How about the city of Vancouver that decided that they were going to have a licensing fee of $30,000?
$30,000. That's what.
And it's actually about $35,000 because there's other fees in there. But that, we asked them to justify that.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you justify it? Well, we have to have a whole team of new inspectors to go around and make sure that the kids aren't buying weed and stuff. That's what they said.
Yeah.
But now we got legalization. They've effectively shut down all but just a small handful of the non-licensed dispensaries.
And nobody talks about medical.
And there's no fleet of inspectors that are out there in shiny new cars that are trained to spot selling to a minor or anything like that.
Well,
so how are they able? This is a sign of the corruption of our society. Is that a government can just decide, we're going to penalize this one group because we don't like them. Or we think they're making too much money. I think that's what their real justification was, is that, people like this product, the price means they're making all this money. We'll do the math on that. Sure, you should give us 30 grand. We can tell them it's 30 grand and they'll still pay it, is what they figured,
Yeah.
And sure enough, everybody lined up to pay it because they wanted to keep selling to their customers.
$1 million
not necessarily for the money, because the money, they really, took the wind out of the sails of dispensaries, because it wasn't just that. I mean, you weren't allowed to sell edibles. You weren't allowed to have home delivery. There's no mail order. You couldn't have anybody under 19. No vapor lounges.
21 now in Quebec.
And 21 in Quebec. I mean, so they took away 7 revenue streams as well as the $30,000 licensing fee.
For stores.
So it was no longer about money for these stores because it was about. And I went and talked to all the dispensary owners in Vancouver when that was all going down. And I wanted to know why. I mean, it was surprised the hell out of me. Why would these dispensaries all line up to pay the $30,000 and get a license? They should all boycott that idea. They all said, if that's what it takes to keep helping our customer base, then that's what we're going to do. Because every one of them had become attached to a percentage of the people that were coming in there to buy their product off them. Yeah. Every one of them had been brought to tears by people talking about how it was helping them with their medical conditions and things like that, and doing what they did with us at the herb school. But you saved our lives and making us cry every day. And they weren't going to give that up, even if it meant losing, the profitability of their stores. Yeah. And so, but the point is that the city decides to do that and punish these people and take advantage of the fact they think they're making this much money and hit them with a $30,000 licensing fee, justify it by and I mean a drugstore is $175 for like a drugstore. So they justify it.
Massage parlors are like $3,000. Same with the taxi license.
$1,500, something like that.
Something like that.
The next highest one was $12,000 to the $30,000, and that was the P&E. That was the whole P&E.
So that was to have an exhibition for 10 days.
for 2 weeks.
Or whatever.
Only 10 days, whatever it is. And there's like 300 or 400 businesses all under the one license in that case. And it was it was $8,000 or $10,000 for the big casinos as well here in Vancouver. But and that's a sin tax apparently. And they're making so much money because gangsters are coming in with fucking hockey bags full of money, all because of prohibition. And so they get to pay a high fee for that too. But no justification for a medical cannabis dispensary to have to pay $30,000. And the only way they did justify it to us was to say, well, we have to have this huge fleet of inspectors, And they never had that. They never had to have that. They closed all those dispensaries down. There's no fleet of inspectors anywhere. And so why now still the $30,000? The same government store that has to pay $30,000 here is $175 or something close to that in Grand Forks, because the mayor of Grand Forks, who was a guest on my show, said they were just going to throw it into some other licensing category like everything else, and they weren't worried about it. But here in Vancouver, it's still $30,000 even for the government stores.
And it doesn't mean nothing. You get shut down the next day.
It's corrupt. It is
and
so
all the
corrupt.
Police forces ended up getting 5 or 10% more in their budget to control cannabis and all the cannabis people that were going to break all the laws.
It is such a clear protection racket. They are running a protection racket to force people into a government-sponsored monopoly. I've never seen a more clear case in my life.
Yeah, it's for
you
sure.
know, they busted a lot of gangs down in the States by proving that they were running protection rackets, and it's never been more clear in my mind
Sure. Wow.
than what's going on here, and how obvious this is. Continuing to inflate the price of a plant that, yes, it has some more costs attached to it to bring it to,
Of
to the
course,
marketplace.
it can't be free.
I
Well,
mean-
it can be free just...
I mean, I think you should be able to probably buy raw cannabis, just fresh off out of a garden grow,
Yeah.
that hasn't been cured, that hasn't been nothing. It's
Yeah.
just fresh, like you would buy fresh tomatoes and fresh celery and fresh cucumbers. I know people say that's silly, but I'm not sure it's silly. I'm not sure that really you could grow cannabis just like you grow those other crops without
Sure.
that extra care and
Sure.
attention, without doing anything to do with curing. Let it just be a vegetable crop
Sure.
or a herbal crop, and let the people take it home and do what they want with it. Let them cure it or dry it and smoke it or whatever it is they want to do. It wouldn't be unreasonable to have that. And to have it, I mean, you could have it at $20 a pound. And that's still more than double what everything else in that produce department is, or that herbal medicine store. There's no other. Saffron is $5,000 a pound.
Yeah,
for
still to this
saffron.
day, yeah.
But that's a processed herb. That's not a fresh herb that
No,
you buy
no,
you
no,
get out of the
no.
garden. That takes just a little bit out of each tiny little or of each flower, just a tiny bit,
Tiny bit,
and it takes like a whole football field to come up with 1 pound of saffron, and it sells for $5,000 a pound. But everything else, including cannabis, is just a plant that grows and gets harvested and could be brought to market, and for it to sell for twice as much as strawberries, which aren't that easy to bring to market.
No, they take a while to grow.
They spoil and they get banged
They get
around. They bruise
yeah.
easy. Heirloom tomatoes, there's some precision in growing and bringing those to
People like
market.
the perfect ones.
Exactly, and the one
They don't like discolored stuff.
and they don't get more than the farmers aren't getting $10 a pound. The grocery store's not
No,
getting $10
not
a
off
pound.
this all natural
You know,
organic.
we look at $6 to $7 a pound and go, "Whoa, that's just for the rich people," and it kind of is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yet cannabis, because it's been prohibited since before we were all born, and prohibition pricing is ludicrous. You know, I mean, I was told $45 for 1 gram of good California bud in Jamaica. Like that's the going price.
Yeah, how much?
$45.
Holy cow.
You know, it's that much in the Yukon here
Yeah,
in Canada. In rural Ontario, as we talked about, when I went through there back in 2006, 7, and 8, and then again in 2011, you know, just a bag of ditchweed, like a quarter ounce of ditchweed, was $100, and it was crap.
An eighth in London is £100.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you think
Yeah.
on the Canadian trade, that's what, $180?
And-
you just
and,
try to grab an eight. $170.
a recent contact of mine in Grenada, Kenyon, he says that it's 45 whatever their money is, and he gave me the translation, but I don't know what. But I know it was really, really high. What he was saying was it's really expensive, and
I've been to places though where it's not very
and the
much.
penalties are harsh, and there's lots of people in jail.
Yeah,
And, you know,
well, the jail thing still to this day, but it's weird. Like there is some countries that
Still
I
execute
never
people.
thought would change. Like even Thailand is letting now medical.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of weird that those places used to kill people. Or, well, sorry,
they might still
capital punishment.
They might still
Right.
execute people for certain crimes, certainly drug crimes, even in Thailand. I'm not sure about Thailand, but right in that in that part of the world,
Vietnam, Singapore. They're
for sure. Yeah, there's a half a
changing their
dozen
minds.
countries where they'll execute you for
They'll
for-
execute
for
you.
50
They'll
grams
execute
or more.
you.
You know, just a
Years
couple,
ago,
couple
they-
ounces, and you're
American kids spit on the street or something. They caned them.
Singapore.
And that was Singapore.
Yeah.
For spitting on the street. No.
That's a little different than just having some flowers in your pocket.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of spitting on the street, but I'm
No,
not really a fan
either
of
am
caning.
I, but to get
I'm not a
caned.
fan of the government having the right to cane people
Cane,
either.
yeah.
Like, come on.
Oh, right, so.
I don't know what you do to keep people from spitting on the street. I don't see too many people spitting on the street.
Yeah,
It's not
people
really a
don't.
problem here. You know?
So.
I mean, in Disneyland, you know, they solved it by just hiring people to clean up the spit right away.
Gross.
So, you know, if you... I'm sure that's what they did.
What's your job at Disney? Spit cleaner.
And there's a lot of peer pressure. You know, in Disneyland, you probably don't want to spit on the street because it's so clean already. Like, you know, and there's other people watching, and they'd probably all go, "What the hell are you doing? That
Never
was a
been to
clean
Disney.
street, you know."
Never
And sure
been
enough,
to
some
Disney.
guy would come out and clean it up right away.
Oh.
But to cane you for doing it,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not in favor of that. I'm not in favor of
No.
Of our governments.
For the drug laws that way.
having that kind of power
Yeah.
over us. You
Yeah.
know? And it's horrible the kind of power that they
No,
have
but you
over
did
people
say
around the world.
tonight.
in
You did
different
say
places.
tonight the source should be the one in trouble, and that's usually some of the biggest corporations in the world.
Well, that's just
Are
it, right?
the source. Right?
Yes, of course. We're back to corruption. The corruption angle never leaves.
Never leaves.
It's always
in
there.
the room.
And you know, I don't know what to think about all of that.
So if I don't know what you're going to do for the prizes here, I'll push this away just in case it goes up a little too much. But yeah, they can have a bag of ammo and BC pine wort for your outdoor guy. Here, I'll show you on the camera. So you get a package of seeds. That's probably.
I'm not going to make any decisions now.
No, it's up to Neil. It's going to be up to Neil to do it.
I'm a big believer.
But it's over $100 in prizes right there.
I'm a big believer in taking a second sober thought about some things.
The other one
to jump into stuff
is the 707 headband for anybody who's more of the indoor grower. There is 12 seeds, so technically, there you go. That's 3 years worth of.
That's a million plants. No?
Right? Yeah. Right. So,
that's a million plants.
And of course, you're going to get the bag of last night to go with it. Another $100 price.
Some zap of cosmic alien energy destroyed every cannabis seed on the planet except for this one.
See,
except for this one.
It sounds like Neil's the winner.
This would definitely result in a million future cannabis plants.
Yeah, right.
You know?
So that's
when they busted Mark Emery, that was some of their premise.
Of
was
course.
he sold enough seeds that if you took the seeds from those plants that you produced and made more plants, that oh my God, the amount of plants, it's staggering.
So
could overgrow the whole continent.
We used to have offices over in Spain and Netherlands and all that because of what was going on back in the day too, right? You know, we had.
What's that you got in your hand there? You never
I brought this. I was going to talk. Usually we do shows all the time. This year we didn't do a show. I don't know if you ever heard of this show. It's the Grow Up Awards. It's an industry award.
I see.
Right? And
not for LPs.
No, it was everybody.
Could they enter if they wanted?
It was everybody. They had like 20 or 25 categories.
Right.
And I think it was Sandra from Remo Nutrients says, "Do you guys even know you're nominated?" It's like, no. Right? And it was all industry voting and all that. We ended up winning that this year.
Isn't that beautiful?
2019 Seed Bank of the Year.
I want to hold that.
Right?
That's nice.
You know, so it was all right.
Right?
And it was one of those. It was voted by industry, and it's good that we've been here so long that people recognize us, will vote for us, have got our gear over the years.
Seed Bank of the Year.
Seed Bank of the Year. And we didn't even enter anything this year. We were pretty quiet on the entries. Oh, we entered. We did enter one quietly. But overall, yeah, like usually.
Well, that's pretty good. Seed Bank of the Year.
Yeah, and that's you know, and yeah.
I got a history with seeds too, you know.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, I think you told me before, but yeah, yeah.
In 2006, after over a year of planning, we did the first of 3 consecutive Freedom Tours.
Yeah.
And all of it was financed by the sale of seeds.
Cool.
So I got a really nice donation from the Vancouver Seed Bank, and that got me to Saskatchewan, basically.
Yeah.
And then in Saskatchewan, I met Jay Green, and Jerry and I were talking about him earlier. And he was a grower, and him and Tim, they set me up with a whole bunch of strains that they had there that they were selling there for, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because of prohibition, these seeds sell for a lot of money. And so what I was able to do with the seeds I got from the seed bank and from them was sell them to people for, I would sell them for $40 or $50, and my packs had at least 13 in them. Whereas normally they'd be selling for $100+ for a 10 pack.
That's why we have 12 in your ours. Like
there
50,
you go. So I made sure I did the baker's dozen.
It was like put 2 more in.
Yeah,
right?
why not? I'm always that way.
Easy, right?
So I made it a baker's dozen and a 13 pack, and I'd sell it for $40 or $50. I mean, and when I went into some of these small towns, there were some people there that were passionate and would have loved seeds and told me so, but they didn't have the money. Well, they got them for whatever they could afford, and in many cases we gave them away as well. But that fueled my trips across Canada those 3 years in a row. That's all I got for financing was that, and that was a wonderful thing. We put the lots of different good strains of seeds into lots of different communities across Canada that
Perfect.
otherwise wouldn't get access to them.
Yeah, perfect.
And in the other years that I went back on the Freedom Tour, there was people that had gotten seeds from me that would have a little bag
Yeah,
for me or want to sit down and
yeah.
smoke some of the stuff they grew there.
Yeah, of course.
So there's a lot of
And that was some of the best weed sometimes. Right? As long as it was lud, you could be in
Yeah.
your garden right beside your tomato plants or something.
Well, most
All
of
of a
these
sudden,
people
at
are
the end of the
growing
year,
indoors.
You're cutting
you know.
that up.
Most
Right.
of it's indoors because the seed they don't have very long growing seasons in most of the rest of Canada.
Carry
And they had to
we
hide
always
it.
carry outdoor,
Yeah.
and we do have the indoor, which do have more strains. Like the outdoor is it's
They've
a
got
little
some
bit
strains that
different. You have
adapt
to
pretty
be
good
more
to
hardy
outdoors and
and
have
stuff.
the auto flowers is good
Yeah,
for the
we sell auto flowers too,
Right.
right? So we do the auto flowers. So there's a
Do
little
you
bit
have
of everything.
recommendations or links to people that have the grow accessories, the tents and the lights and that kind of stuff?
Not usually. Of course, we're with our new product here with Lamo. We are
If you're connected with Johnny
involved,
B.
getting involved with these places because this is made for everybody, right? It's so there's a couple of local farms. There is a soil place that's wants to add it. They sell all their soil through the Okanagan and stuff like that because it's good for any broadleaf plant. So and including grasses, so anything but pine.
So your website's going to have a link to what Johnny B's involved in and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and
of
through that
course.
they can
And
find all this stuff
I'm
out.
not the Instagram guy. There's people on our team that
I just want to our
or
viewers that
Instagram, and yeah, from there it's kind of like, yeah, they do that kind of part. So,
So if our viewers want to call in and get advice about what seeds are going to be best for them to have, your operators will also be able to maybe direct them to where they could get accessories and things
of course,
like
of course, and if even if the questions get a little more concrete, they'll just move on to the next person higher up that knows a lot more knowledge
that.
about.
And eventually they get to talk to you.
Well,
That's they know everything.
right.
You've trained your
this
staff
voice,
well.
this voice, scares babies and make puppy whimper. So sometimes you don't always want.
And you've been having as much fun as you can with it for a long time. You do a Macho Man routine on stage.
I've been the host. I've sat right in
You
that
have?
chair.
Well, not on my
before.
show, but
Not on your show.
Other pot TV shows.
On the other shows, I have shown up in character, but now
character?
you're giving away my.
Oh,
it's like
that was such a twin brother.
Are you Spider-Man? Like you just gave it away, man. What are you doing?
We have all we tell our viewers what's going on. You know,
Obviously, you just
you
can't-
heard it
you
here
can't hold the
first.
secret.
There's no secret that is safe on my show. I'm sorry to tell you. So we ask all the tough questions and we get all the answers. So
No, well.
I can't thank you enough for all that you're doing and for coming
Happy
on
New
the
Year,
show.
Neil. And you
Happy
keep up
New
that
Year.
program.
It's going to be a great year, isn't it?
And we're going to do the best we can with our donations. And any
thank
other
you.
company out there, Neil's got a great program going on right here. Please make donations. He needs them.
It all runs on donations.
If you see those lineups on Facebook, they're 300-400 deep going down a whole block.
Not 400 yet.
Okay, no, but it's
We give out consistently about 300 care packs
300?
now. And that's
Okay.
and there are a good number of people, maybe 50 or 60 people that are getting a second bag. We allow
Perfect.
people, we allow them to go back a second time. That one bag is in my opinion not really enough for most people to get through
No.
to the next time that we're there. And my vision was always to give them enough.
Neil, you're doing good work, man.
But we
You're
got to
doing good
spread
work.
it out as best we can. So we
You
don't
are.
give them like as much as we
Sure.
would like to right off the bat, because
Yeah.
then some people at the end wouldn't get anything.
Of course.
But we've been very, very good about having enough donations to be able to make sure that everybody gets at least the one bag, and many people get that second bag,
Yeah.
which is important and good for them, and we'd like to do even more than that.
Sure.
But it all runs on just donations. And,
Of course,
it's
so that's why I'm saying to
important.
people, make sure
and
you
it's
donate.
an ongoing fluid situation of donations, so that people come in and they donate what they can, and then
No.
they go away, and other
As
people
I said,
come
we
in
wish
and-
we could do more.
You've done a lot,
The
and
seed,
I
seed
look
company
forward
is the
to more.
seed company. As I said, we usually give the test buds all to you.
Well,
right?
I'm
And
gonna
we
come and
do
see
all
you.
organic. We don't do this chemical stuff.
Do you do just in the last moments here? Do you do auto flower seeds, and do you?
We do.
feminized
We
seeds?
do. Of course, we can't make them all just between a couple. So we have outsourced. So people do certain ones, and our auto
I might
flower.
come- I might
our
come and
auto
ask
flower
you.
is actually from the prairies, right? That's where you kind of need them.
At the CSP, we have been able to give away seeds in February to
Yeah,
people. We gave
yeah.
out 420 packs last year, and I might come and see if you have any seeds
Of
you
course,
might donate it.
of course.
We do prefer to give out the auto flower feminized because we're dealing with people that aren't skilled in growing
Sure,
seeds,
sure.
and we want their experience to be as
Yeah, and
positive
it's
as we
8 to
can.
10 weeks,
So
you get a reward.
they're-
Might
they're-
not be much
They're a
reward,
little
but
more
it's a
valuable,
reward.
and I found them harder
Yeah,
to get
you
as
got
a
something to
donation.
smoke, man.
But I'm putting you on the spot
eat.
here. I'm going to ask you. So.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. All right,
Thanks,
Neil.
Mr. Camel, sir.
All right,
Been a
all
pleasure.
right.
Look
Thank
forward
you,
to the
guys.
next year.
All right, yeah. All right, anytime, bud.
Very cool.
Media,
You know,
government, as they drive by, hopefully they see the sign. All right, Happy New Year. I'm gonna take your picture. If you don't want to be in the picture, don't look at my camera. Share with John. You gotta work with. I know. All right.
And here we got our whole roller, rolly. Nice. So here's a sample of what we put in the bag.
Hello.
Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Enjoy. Have a great year. You too. Hi there. How are you? Indica.
Enjoy.
Good New Year.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good.
And what brings you to our Cannabis Substitution Project lineup?
Well, I'm a cannabis user, and it's a good alternative other than hard drugs.
So we need more donations of flowers or trim for sure.
What brings you to Cannabis Substitution Project?
For my edibles to be sober for the week. They
Oh,
help me with my sobriety.
that's a hard one, isn't it?
Not only sobriety, but trauma of living on the downtown east side with all the shootings, the murders, the missing people, and being a single mother altogether. It's traumatic.
And what brings you to Cannabis Substitution Project today?
Because I find it successful through the CBDs, cannabinoids, and marijuana to relieve my pain that I have from the surgery. So medical marijuana actually substitutes hydromorphine, which I refuse to take because I don't want to become a victim of the drug lord.
THC? No, she doesn't need jello.
All right. Chicken sandwich, my friend?
Yeah, chicken sandwich.
Chicken infused.
Because we're doing the right thing. And then the government store is going to have to go away and reinvent themselves and come back and have $3 grams that are really good, cured properly, and all the rest of it, not overpackaged, and fuck the warnings. Start encouraging people to use cannabis responsibly, and it'll help you with all kinds of different things.
Well, so that's the CSP. For anybody who doesn't know, the CSP is the Cannabis Substitution Project. And for just about 3 years, we have been giving out care packs of mostly high-dose cannabis edibles. We also put a joint or two per pack to help people offset the use of opioids and other street drugs to help address the opioid crisis. And it was 3 years ago yesterday that I got approval from the board at Vandu, a unanimous approval from them to go ahead and start the project and to seek approval from City Hall. So that was a milestone that happened yesterday of 3 years. And just in the last couple of days as well, we have been accepted as a society. We've been attempting to register as a society for the last few months, having trouble coming up with a name that they would accept. And they have accepted the name Serious Hope Society, which is perfect and awesome in a lot of different ways. The Serious Hope Society is a name that I had them put forward because we started a foundation or a society 15 years ago by that name that didn't get registered because I started doing these trips across Canada. But it had a great vision at that time. Hope is a very powerful, necessary thing in the pursuit of whatever it is that you're after. And it's the middle name of our show. And it's also the middle name of our society now that the CSP will be under that umbrella. So very happy to have the Serious Hope Society accepted as a society. And we have an excellent board of directors in place. Those people will be notified in the next day or two that it's happened. And we have a really good advisory advisory board as well. Looking forward to the next year with the CSP. We're also on the verge, as I've been mentioning, of getting a storefront where we're going to open up and have access to cannabis for the opioid crisis with low barrier access, as the city has said that they will support. So that's really awesome. And I can't stress enough how valuable our donators are and our volunteers are. This entire project runs on volunteers and with volunteers, myself included, and through donations. And it doesn't work without them. And so a huge shout out and thank you to all the people that have donated and do donate and will donate to our project coming up in the future. Other coming events that are happening, there's not many.
Protest tomorrow.
So tomorrow we have a protest being put on
1084 Ford Street, Victoria.
1084 Ford Street, Victoria, which will be
F-O-R-T.
F-O-R-T, Fort Street, and that's somebody's office, Neil?
At Carol James's office.
Carol James's office. So Ted Smith and the Victoria Buyers Club have been putting on weekly protests about the blocking of access and the shutting down of their particular dispensary, but all dispensaries in general that are being attacked by the community safety unit. And so support them if you're anywhere near them. We need to protest these things. If you're not anywhere near them, you can still protest these things. You can go down and make an appointment with your local MLA or member of parliament and tell them what you think about this so-called legalization, keeping prices of cannabis out of reach for most people, especially those that need to use it daily. It's a horrific situation, and most of us know that. I'm sure most of us watching this show understand how many people are being harmed, and we all know somebody and people that are being harmed by not being able to go and get the medicine that really helps them in their life for at a reasonable price in a way that works for them, all because of government corruption. And so the way that we can address that is by going down and confronting these government people and accusing them of that corruption and demanding that they give relief and allow for easy access to medical cannabis, not just to address the opioid crisis, but for all the other reasons that cannabis benefits people and our society. So there is a cannabis expo put on by Lyft coming up, and I have very mixed emotions about all of that. As we've talked about, the government system and the LPs is not something to be supported for sure, but Lyft being here and these people, and not just these people, when I say these people, I'm being very racist about that. I think that these LPs are people that need to be put into a category, and they need to distinguish themselves out of that if they want to, but in the meantime, they're in that category. They're all tarred by the same brush. They are all part of a system that's continuing to criminalize and stigmatize people that are wanting to use cannabis and continuing to cause great harm in our society as prohibition does. So friends don't let friends support LPs or buy LP weed, and that's just how I feel about that. That's not to say that there aren't a lot of other companies that are involved in the growing of cannabis and helping people grow cannabis that aren't involved with Lyft. I know there are, and so that Lyft isn't to be totally boycotted. In fact, I see it as an opportunity for people to go and have their voice heard and see what's going on and find out for themselves and let those people that are having influence in our movement and in the commercialization of cannabis know how we feel about things and that what we need and demand as individual autonomous beings. So that's happening this weekend in Vancouver, the Lyft Cannabis Expo. And the next big thing on the list, and I'm wearing the shirt because 420, we start getting excited about that here in Vancouver right about now. Christmas is over, New Year's is over, and the first thing that's foremost on our minds is this amazing 420 event that we have grown and overseen for all of these years. We had our 25th year last year. And so that's very exciting, and there's booths available, and we'll have obviously similar to what we've had in other years. There will be just a plethora of everything cannabis that can be there, and there will be a host of good speakers and entertainers, and we will educate and we will entertain and give you the opportunity to medicate and all the other good things and socialize with cannabis people and all the other good things that the 420 is all about. So that's what's coming up. That's kind of it for the show. I want to thank Cannabis Culture for allowing me the time and space here to be able to do this and get all this stuff off my chest and feel like maybe I'm making a difference, because maybe you'll watch the show and you'll make a difference, and between all of that I'm making a difference. And for any of you out there that have written a letter or made a phone call or made a sign or just done anything to support the movement of getting our rights and freedoms back, with to do with cannabis, but also to do rights and freedoms in general, that the feeling that you get from doing that can't be bought with money. You just know you're making the world a better place and you're a better person because of it. And that's just the best way to live, in my opinion. And I feel very fortunate that I came to understand that relatively early in my life, that it's all about what you give and it's not so much about what you get or what you take. And if you give a lot, you'll get a lot. And that's kind of how it is. So be motivated, be inspired, figure out where your niche is and what you're not happy about and what you think you can maybe do to make a difference, and do it in a peaceful, creative way, and have as much fun as you can, of course. And so the other things that are happening here at Pot TV, we have an active schedule. There's always good things going on, or most of the time anyway. And if not, you can go back and go back into some of the different archives and streams and see other shows. This is the 21st THC show, so there's a bunch there that I guess you could go back and find and watch. And I've had a whole
least 20.
At least 20. And there's been at least 19 guests in these 21 shows. And actually more than that, because there was a couple of people that came on in pairs, Don and Carol, for example, and Chris and Suk. And so the who's who of the cannabis industry and our movement has already come on the show, and with more to come for sure in the new year. We haven't had them all on yet. And you can go back and see some of those interviews and find out what makes those people tick, how they got to be where they are, and what they think is going to be happening in the future of activism here. So you can find out some of that stuff on Greg Williams' show, From Under the Influence, which happens tomorrow at Pot TV. Comes on at 4 o'clock, just like our show. And Greg has an interesting perspective. He's world traveled and tried all the cannabis strains that ever happened, and some that haven't happened yet. I'm sure he's also experienced, because he's a dreamer. But he's a great guy, and I'm sure he'll entertain you and educate you as well. And that's tomorrow at 4 o'clock. On Friday, Cannabis Culture News Live with Jeremiah Vandermeer and Johnny B and a host of other co-hosts and guests, as they keep you up to date on what's going on in the cannabis world. And on Sunday is Boss Lissa with, that's Saturday? That's Saturday with Boss Lissa at high noon. Don't tune in Sunday, you will have missed it. So on Saturday, Boss Lissa, done over 100 shows of high noon, and always a lot of fun, I'm sure, as well. I've actually been on that show once back in the early days, a couple times, I think, so I enjoyed that. And Monday, it's the 420 Lifestyle Show with Carly Marley and BC Bud Gal, and they are the most entertaining of all the shows, I'm told. They got the audience to prove it, and they have as much...
1,000 milligram cookie on Monday.
Wow, 1,000 milligram cookie.
The government wants to give out the...
Yeah, I mean...
It's delicious. Best cookie I've ever had, probably.
Well, and I've seen it.
Cannabis cookie.
Best cannabis cookie, 1,000, and I've seen their show a number of times. They do find ways to have as much fun as you can with the cannabis and anything to do with cannabis, and they keep you informed as well. So that's awesome.
Scotland wanted a shout out.
Scotland?
Yeah, earlier in the show,
Scotland. A shout out to Scotland. I don't know if I can do a Scottish accent very well. I shouldn't be trying accents, but because I never planned to be good at that. Nobody pays me to do that, and nor would they. But, as always, I just try to have as much fun as I can. And thanks to my guests for helping me do that. 8 out of 10 Glenn from CannaMatch.ca, Jerry Martin from the Martin Medical Moment, and my guest today, Rick the Camel, Neil, my producer, all of you for watching. We're changing the world. Keep having as much fun as you can, and we'll get her done.
Media, government, as they drive by, hopefully they see the sign. All right, Happy New Year. I'm going to take your picture. If you don't want to be in the picture, don't look at my camera.